Time being after 7, having a quorum, we'll open up the hearing. Minutes will be done at the next meeting. So, still got a minute or two before the appointment. Do we have anything we can bang out right now? Kate?
Is anybody here for 1350 North Street?
Looks like
Yes.
Yes.
Maureen, this is,
All right.
peer review.
Okay, the peer review, we have one from, well, we had 3 of them. And who did you say to use?
Basically, you have 2 proposals from 3 different ones, and I assume that basically I asked for a proposal for 1 meeting in a report and 2 meetings in a report, just in case. So I mean, for this size set, I recommend we go with 1 meeting in a report, and that means the lowest quota was VAI
Okay.
at $37.50.
All right, that's in our folder. All right.
Are we required to go with the lowest bid?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I just don't know if there's someone else on the list that we've used before that we've had good luck with.
We've used those. We've used all of these.
We have,
Man
okay.
Associates at Town itself is used. VAI, I believe, has done, and PAR hasn't done an awful lot around, but they're well known. They're well known. They all are.
Any of them have more, like, experience in Walpole
No.
than the other?
I mean, McMahon has, but they were also the highest one.
Hmm.
Vince is out.
Vince.
I knew you'd be the only one to get that one. All right, anybody have any questions? Make a motion for VAI for 1 meeting and a report in the amount of $37.50. Have a second?
Second.
Have a second? Any further discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 400.
And you might also want to ask the project proponent who may be here to give you a check, potentially.
Want to know, you got any money with you? Cash?
Can I get out to Sarah?
Okay. Did you already make it out in the amount?
VAI.
Yeah.
No, you gotta make it out to the town of Walpole.
Okay. Can I bring it to you tomorrow then?
Bring it to, are you gonna, okay,
You're not in tomorrow then?
come Monday.
Monday?
The reason why, because the
Okay.
town has to deposit it into our
It's
account,
your
because,
contract essentially.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
That's okay,
I'm so
that's okay.
sorry.
I can bring it to you Monday though?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
great.
please do, and then I'll,
what happens on Monday?
nothing, just because if you're not there tomorrow, and I don't know if I'm gonna
Right,
be
but
here.
does the board have to vote to accept it or no?
No. No, we said they
Okay.
gotta fund it.
Alright.
Yeah.
We voted the amount.
Okay.
All right. Get rid of that one.
Just out of curiosity, then once that gets in, who executes that contract?
It's a quote, so it just goes under, down the town hall. I mean, down to Sue Beatty, correct?
Yes, yep. I'd have to find out what account the money gets deposited into, whether you have a peer review account or what. And then once that money is deposited, then I'll have Sue Beatty do the purchase order to VAI.
Okay, and then they do their thing and report back and
Yep. Yes.
file their findings with Kate?
Yep, and come to a meeting, whichever meeting we
Gotcha,
have
okay.
them come
Yeah,
to.
it's based upon your RFQ or RFP,
Yeah,
whatever.
basically, we just ask for a peer review. Usually, they're pretty standard. Usually what happens is the bigger cost differentials come when you want them to come to more than 1 meeting. That's because the first review they do, and then they'll come to a meeting, and then, if you've got a rather large site, sometimes you want them to come to more than 1.
Yep,
Same thing with drainage.
okay.
Do we have any specific questions we want them to address? Do we have an opportunity to talk about that at a future date, or they're just gonna review what was already done?
Usually the peer review is just the review of what the applicant's traffic person submitted. However, if you've got particular questions, get them to me as soon as possible, and I'll make sure they know about them. If there's anything in particular you're looking to have looked at while they go through it,
Okay.
that I can do.
Yeah, if you
That's
find,
easy.
if you read what they've submitted and you don't like something you want further, that's part of, they're supposed to do it for us too.
Okay, okay.
In your experience, have you ever seen where they've come back and said, no, this is way off?
Sometimes, because
Really?
what a peer review will look at is the different assumptions. Did they make assumptions on the right traffic at the right time of day, the right traffic patterns? I mean, this is a pretty basic location.
Sure.
In terms of something that's really big, like a Walpole Mall on Route 1.
Right.
So there may not be as much to look at, but they'll look at their assumptions and how they generated their traffic provisions and traffic patterns and what have you.
Okay.
All right. Okay, now the hour being after 7:05, we have the Housing Partnership here tonight, and they come to talk to us, so.
Hi there. Thank you, Chairman Conroy and Planning Board for meeting with some members of the Walpole Housing Partnership. My name's Andrew Flowers. I'm the chair. We have Will Bandler here, Mike Teely, and Phil Zakarowski. We are, just to give a little background before I can dive in, we're a selectman-appointed group of town citizens who are working to improve the amount of affordable housing in Walpole. And hopefully by so doing that, we regain local control and thwart 40B developments. So we have a lot to learn from the planning board and your expertise in zoning, and look forward to collaborating with you. So Chairman Conroy, I'll defer to you on how to go about this. I was thinking I would just update you, the planning board, on the housing production plan that's in process, and speak to where we stand with that, and then we can talk about the previous housing production plan, and then if other members of the housing partnership here who want to ask a question or make a comment, you should all feel free if Chairman Conroy allows. So 2018 housing production plan. What is a housing production plan? You're probably familiar, but it's kind of the main task the Housing Partnership Committee is charged with. Every 5 years, this plan gets certified by the state, and it's for municipalities who don't have enough affordable housing according to the Chapter 40B law. And what's that threshold? It's 10%. We're at 5.4% in Walpole. And having a housing production plan kind of serves two purposes. One, it's kind of our path out, right? It's our plan to improve those numbers, but it's also a required step to have the so-called safe harbor in case a 40B proposal does come before you. How you can negotiate that is you're empowered more when you have a housing production plan. So Walpole's expires. It was approved in 2013 and expires this December 12th, 2018. Where do we stand? Former Community Development Director Tim Higgins put out an RFP, request for proposals, to consultants to help draft or really update the previous plan from 5 years ago. That RFP went out in late June. I talked to Town Administrator Jim Johnson today. The deadline was last Friday for proposals. He didn't have with him at that moment the exact number of proposals, but he said he's going to check, but he believes that there were some proposals that came in. They came in around the $7,500 range, which was below the $10,000 that town meeting allotted for this consultant services. So it seems like we're on track. The goal being to update this by the end of the year. So to pivot from, so that's the update. We're waiting the final proposal in terms of who's going to be the consultant. But for the next step, the next topic we put together, the committee put together to speak with you is the previous housing production plan. There are on pages 40 to 45 some implementation strategies, like anywhere from a half dozen to a dozen ideas the previous consultant wrote that Walpole could try to implement to increase its share of affordable housing. And I just wanted to ask the committee, and I'll go over just a few of them. An inclusionary zoning bylaw is one that this committee has been researching. I sent you all a copy of the Mansfield inclusionary zoning bylaw. That was one idea that was in the previous housing production plan for Walpole. Other ones, allowing accessory apartments, developing additional public housing, working with the state to have a local initiative program project, an LIP project, which is like a friendly 40B. In other words, we kind of shop around a plot of land in town to developers to do a 40B of our choosing. There's other options in here, but I just wanted to kind of open it up at this point. We can talk about either the Mansfield inclusionary zoning bylaw, and if any members have thoughts on that, as well as if any of these strategies have been attempted or successfully accomplished in the last 5 years.
All right. Mansfield, you sent to us. It's been since July 16. Oh, wait a minute. That's when you sent it to us. How long's that been in? Mansfield?
I talked to Sean Burke, the town planner in Mansfield, a few months ago, and he said in the mid-90s, the town was hit with 3 40B developments in a row. And I don't remember the exact year, but sometime in the mid-90s, they passed this. They worked with a consultant who I tried to contact but has since retired. And basically the gist of an inclusionary zoning bylaw, as I understand it, again, I'm no expert at all in zoning, is you essentially require developers for certain size developments. In Mansfield's case, it's 6 or more units. You require them to set aside a certain fraction of those units to be affordable. So in Mansfield's case, it's if you have 6 or more units, that 6th unit has to be affordable, and then after that, every 7th unit has to be affordable. So take as an example, 104 units. You would have that first one in the first 6, and then every 7th one that would be up to 14 after that. So 15 total units would have to be affordable if you did a 104 unit building in Mansfield. So it's around 15%. Is roughly what Mansfield's shooting for. And because of that, by mandating that bigger developments have like around 15% affordable, you start improving those numbers. And Sean Burke, the town planner there, really credited it with helping their numbers rise, and now they're not susceptible to 40Bs, they're above 10%. We also spoke with the Massachusetts Housing Partnership, which is kind of the parent organization of us at the state level, and that's one of their tools they recommend for local officials, planning boards to kind of consider. And other members, and they can speak to this, other members of the Housing Partnership here have contacted a dozen or more other towns in the surrounding area. And an inclusionary zoning bylaw, I don't know off the top of my head how many towns have it in Massachusetts, but I know it's a lot. Or not a lot, but it's not uncommon. So just wanted to see if this has been considered before in Walpole. What do you think are the merits of it? And there are other options we have, like I mentioned, the friendly 40Bs as a way to kind of get ahead of this problem. There's the Smart Growth 40R projects that you can work with the state to do. Again, I don't know the details of this. This has just been passed on to me by the individuals I've spoken with and the other members of this committee.
Okay, I don't want to be the only one. Anyone else can speak. Question for you though, I'm looking, and they do it under their planning board. Is their planning board elected or appointed, do you know?
Mr. Conroy, that's a great question. I don't know.
The only reason I'm questioning is because here in this town, any 40Bs are handled by the zoning. So that's, to me, they're the ones that have been doing it, so would be the ones, you're not doing site, you're not doing roll. If they're just doing something like this, that may be something that they probably better at.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Chairman, there's a way to have affordable housing without specifically having a 40B. Like a 40B project, you can designate, like Mr. Flowers mentioned, like designate a certain percentage of buildings be, affordable, and then that doesn't make the whole project a 40B project, right? It's just you've designated a certain number of units as
yes,
affordable.
my understanding, and other members can correct me, if for multifamily residential developments, if it's 25% or more, like an apartment complex or condos as an example, then the entire number of housing units, even if it's just 25%, are affordable, all those units count towards our numbers. And I've been throwing around this 10%, 5.4% number. Say what?
If they're rentals.
Yes,
Not if
they're rentals.
Yeah, it doesn't count if it's condos. Yeah.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Say that again, I'm sorry. So why would a condo not count?
So,
It's Massachusetts law.
So
Yeah.
all our 40Bs are based upon apartments then, right?
It's more attractive.
40Bs are multifamily developments, as I
Okay,
understand.
the 10% we gotta get to is based upon just strictly apartments?
No, it's our total. So the 10%
Okay.
number it takes the number of housing units in Walpole, which is around 9,000. It says how many of them are what we consider affordable housing. Well, what is that definition? And I should have started with this. Excuse me. But affordable housing is not like public housing. It's not 40B developments. It's more than that. It's housing that someone who's a low to moderate income, which in the Boston metro area is like around $80,000, that they would be eligible to rent, and or buy. So that's what is considered affordable housing. And in Walpole, it's only about 450 units that are of the 9,000 are considered affordable right now. So in other words, if we want to avoid 40Bs in the future, we have like one of two ways to approach this. We could get 450 more affordable units somehow built. It's going to take a long time to get up to that 900 number to be at 10%. Or we can just build a half a percentage point of our housing units in a given year that are deemed affordable, which would be 45 units every year. And for every year we do that, we are exempt from 40Bs. So that's the more modest, I think, achievable goal year to year that some of the members of this committee have kind of thought is more realistic. That if, for instance, from 2008 to 2013, Walpole averaged about 38 new units that were deemed affordable every year building. So we were actually close. We were just shy of that 45 number that would prevent us from 40B exposure.
And to go back to your point about the numbers, so affordable housing.
Kelly, can you come to the microphone?
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you're on
Here.
TV, so no one's gonna be able to see you.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so just to go back to the 25% thing, that's only for rental units. That doesn't mean that affordable units are only rental units. You could have a single-family home that was deed restricted as an affordable housing unit, and that if the person that bought it as an affordable housing unit sold it, they would only be able to sell it for whatever the amount at that time was that fell under the affordable housing limit. So those count. But that's not what he was talking about with the 25%. What he's talking about with the 25% is if I build a 100-unit housing, 100 housing unit apartment building and designate 25 of those units as affordable, for some reason, Massachusetts law then says that all 100 apartments in that building count towards our total amount. So, like, if someone built a 50-unit building, but they made, just a quarter of those units affordable, then in that year, we would hit our 0.5% just with that one development. I don't know if that made any sense.
It makes sense, but I have a question for you.
I might have an answer for you.
And I probably should know the answer myself, but, so let's say it's either a condo, not a rental. The last time I looked, and I could be way off, but I think with Walpole's actual numbers, using the state's guidelines for the percentage of income and that type of thing, am I right by saying that the cost of a single-family home that would be considered affordable is right around $380,000?
Does anyone remember? I don't remember. So just so you know, it's
Based on the
not-
mortgage payment, correct?
Based on mortgage,
Yeah.
principal and interest.
Last time I checked, it would be right around
doesn't-
375 to 382.
So, you understand that it's not based on Walpole average income, it's based on area median income. So whatever the income is in Walpole doesn't actually affect what counts as an affordable unit in Walpole.
Okay.
So
I'm glad I
that-
asked the question then, because
That's
I
one
just-
thing to consider, is that you look at that AMI number and it's that like $80,000-ish dollars, and then they consider you to be burdened if you're paying more than a third of
30%,
that.
yeah, 30% of
For
that.
housing
yeah.
costs. But that doesn't change if Walpole's income is higher, like if the average income in Walpole is higher than 80,000, that doesn't change that number. We still have to meet affordability for someone that's making $80,000 a year.
Okay,
And then for different size families, there are different amounts.
so let's say a single-family home is designated affordable. I don't know if you would ever do that, but
It happens. It doesn't happen a lot because it's not super efficient as far as getting.
what is,
more
how,
units.
is that deed restricted at that
Yes,
point? It
yeah.
is.
If they buy the unit, I mean, you can always rent a single-family home.
Sure.
But assuming that the person receiving the affordable housing purchases the unit, whether it's a standalone home or a condo.
Or a condo, but is that in
it becomes-
perpetuity?
That's the idea. They're doing that more these days. I think in the early days, what I've heard from some of the other town planners is that they weren't always careful about making sure those units stayed within the affordable housing stock. But everyone I've talked to has said, yeah, if you do it right, you can keep those units within your numbers for your affordable housing stock, basically in perpetuity.
So how does one, and you're probably gonna get to this with what Mansfield did, but let's just use as an example the Corcoran project downtown at the train station. Now, how do you go to a private firm, for-profit, building a 192-unit apartment building and say to them, how do we make this?
I mean, I can answer that, but I feel like I just jumped in for you, so I'm.
You make an affordable housing trust fund.
Yeah,
Well, that's one of the ways.
So the town planner, Sean Burke, mentioned that in Mansfield, the way it works, and this is pretty common. I've talked to the state level agency I mentioned, the Massachusetts Housing Partnership, and they they tell me that this is a pretty common setup. When you pass an inclusionary housing zoning bylaw, an inclusionary zoning bylaw, you have kind of two options for the developer. You can either meet it by actually building the units on-site or off-site. So again, the 104 units, or let's use Corcoran. I'm ballparking it here, but for Corcoran, of 190 or so units, it's going to be around 30. 30 of those units need to be affordable. Corcoran could build them on-site, have 30 of the 190 be affordable. They could build them off-site, a different development that has 30. Or, and then this is the key point Willow was referring to, is these towns typically set up with the inclusionary zoning bylaw a affordable housing trust fund that in lieu of building affordable housing units, the developer can pay a fee that's calculated based on the difference of the median home price in the town and then what they're actually charging to sell, and pay that fee, a percentage of that, not the entire fee.
To the town.
To the town. And in our case, it would probably go to the Walpole Housing Authority.
For what?
So
It would go to the Walpole Housing Authority, either to build public housing or to, I don't know, you could do other things with it, serve as an incentive for.
Well, I mean, is there?
Yeah, you can use it as-
Is that, are those funds regulated? I mean, so Corcoran could come in and say, well, no, I'll pay the fee to the trust fund. These are all gonna be market rate, and then, we get another baseball field out of it? I mean, how does that, does it have to be towards
No, it has to be
affordable
towards
housing?
affordable housing.
So that's part of the
The trust fund
trust
restrictions.
fund restrictions, okay. Again, I'm just trying to understand.
They don't get to decide.
Yeah.
Private company that pays into it doesn't decide.
No,
No,
but the
no, I'm
town.
talking about the town.
The restrictions
Yeah,
are
it's over-
on the town,
Yes,
yeah.
I'd hate to,
Walpole Housing Authority is very, very regulated. I mean, they can't just,
They're federal, right?
Yeah.
they can't just spend the money.
As I understand it, talking to Denise Landry, the executive director of the Walpole Housing Authority, she's come to our meetings. I spoke to her today. She gets almost all of her funds from state, all of her grants from state and federal sources, but she's actually self-sufficient. The Walpole Housing Authority, is self-sufficient in terms of the rental income and grants that they receive to
Really?
run their projects and to do their maintenance.
and the only reason I'm asking these questions, quite frankly, is because one thing I learned when I made, I'm not gonna say the mistake, but maybe the not knowing what I was getting into, becoming involved in town government, is sometimes you take the eye off the ball in terms of what the real goal is as opposed to what comes out of that. So, let's say they get the option to pay into this trust fund. What I would like to at least have more understanding in, does the money paid into that trust fund actually come out the other end as affordable housing for people?
That's my understanding, because again, that housing trust, that affordable housing trust is regulated and enshrined, has enshrined restrictions when you start it.
Okay.
So that's my understanding of how these inclusionary zoning bylaws work. But of course, we want to consult a legal expert. But before we even go down that road, the timeline as we see it is this housing production plan is going to get updated by the consultant over the next few months. In the past, both the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board vote to approve this housing production plan, as well as this committee. And we want to work with you because it seems that, according to my reading of the history, but again, you are the experts, that none of these implementation strategies were attempted from the last five years ago. So we don't want to just pay funds to get the same advice from 5 years ago and then do nothing about it and then be exposed to 40Bs. So we're throwing out there, we're trying to be proactive and say, hey, this is something that a lot of other towns recommend, this inclusionary zoning bylaw. It would be through your purview to kind of help shepherd that through. We would obviously be interested if that's something, again, we haven't voted on this as a committee. We're going to wait to hear from the consultant. But just to give you a sense of the timeline, this is one option, one tool in the toolbox.
Does the consultant just help you rewrite it, or do they also give you tips and tricks, like about the different methods and things like that, and how to see them through? Or do they just do the verbiage and rewrite it?
That's a great question. And we worked with the former Community Development Director, Tim Higgins, over the last few months in drafting this RFP for the consultants. And we tried to stress that compared to the report from 5 years ago, we didn't just want the numbers to be updated and the same recommendations. We wanted some more kind of boots on the ground, how do you go about implementing it. And I think the way we're going to achieve that with this new consultant, or maybe it's going to be the same consultant last time, is we're going to have public hearings, and we're going to have lots of open meetings through the Housing Partnership Committee with the consultant, and possibly, if you're welcome to, as a board, they're mandated in RFP to contact you and get your input on the plan. So the idea being, what do you think? I mean, to cut to the point, because I want to be respectful of your time, I know that you have a docket of other appointments, but what do you think about an inclusionary zoning bylaw or some of these other strategies that were in the housing production plan from 5 years ago?
So, affordable housing is one of the things that I think is really critical to the long-term success of Walpole. It's something that jumped out at me while I was researching things, interested in serving on the planning board. So I haven't changed my opinion. I think it's really, really important. And the thing is, in Massachusetts, if you ignore affordable housing, if you just think like, oh, well, we're not going to have that here, we're not interested, the state makes it happen to you. And I think we've seen that with other towns, like, you know, you're saying Mansfield, they did it after being forced to. Norfolk is having like 6 to 7 forced affordable housing. So my hope is that in Walpole we don't get to that situation, that we're proactive and we keep the control, and, you know, do a good thing and increase affordable housing. So I guess my biggest question is, a lot of these implementation strategies I agree with. I think a lot of them can help us, but there's one piece that's missing here, and that's the Board of Selectmen. So my question is, where are they on their you know, goals and efforts and will to implement some of these things? I mean, I have the will. I would like to be a part of it, but I'm just one member of a board, and I think Planning Board and Board of Selectmen really have to work together to make any of these implementation strategies successful.
Just to echo what Sarah said, if you think about the different strategies here, whether it's a friendly 40B or an inclusionary zoning bylaw, or I mentioned the 40R smart growth, which are essentially overlay districts, zoning overlay districts that allow for denser developments that are affordable. Of all the strategies, some require more planning board weight, and I think the inclusionary zoning bylaw is right up your alley, versus some other strategies require more Board of Selectmen involvement. And negotiating and shopping friendly 40Bs, those 40R things, that's going to be a Board of Selectmen task. And so to use Corcoran, use all these big developments downtown as an example, we could have made a substantial dent in our deficit if there was a negotiation tactic to have, you know, 15% or some required 25%, to use the numbers we talked about earlier. All those units, if 25% of all those units were affordable, then all of those units would have counted. It would have made a huge difference. So we're just trying to.
What's the impact on the builder and, you know, the management company versus whether or not they would want to make an investment in a town if they had to make 25% affordable or pay into the trust?
Well, I would say it wouldn't necessarily have to be 25%, and I wouldn't recommend 25% for Walpole. I would, you know, shoot for something like, once you have, I believe in the report it recommends over 10 units, recommend like 10% or something like that. And then in lieu of providing those, you know, 10%, you could pay into the fund. I think requiring all projects to do 25% is just not reasonable, and I wouldn't support something like that. But if you do like a smaller percentage and then give the developer option to just, you know, pay into the fund, then they can, or like as Andrew mentioned, develop it off-site.
It's not, the intention wouldn't be to have the inclusionary zoning bylaw say, if you build apartments in Walpole, you have to make 25% of them affordable, because obviously we're not going to get that. People just won't do it. But, so it's strategic. You have to do things in a certain order, right? So if you say, if you're going to build in Walpole, you have to make 10% of your units affordable, which is very reasonable, and I've heard from a number of different developers. I went to a 40B conference sponsored by CHAPA, which is the something housing something. I'll tell you the acronym later. I can't get it off the top of my head, but there were a bunch of developers there, and they were like, yeah, you know, it's totally doable. You can ask developers for this, and they're likely to say yes. So what you do is you have a number of developments where, or like if it's a single family home where you can't make 10% of a single family home into an affordable unit, obviously, then they pay in a certain amount. You build up your housing trust, with this little project and that little project where people didn't want to do the 10% for whatever reason or couldn't. And then when you have a project that's a whole bunch of apartments, they have to do the 10%. But to get to 25%, you can boost it with the funds that you have in that trust to get to the 25%. So now you get way more bang for your buck as far as getting.
You mean like by subsidizing so the hit is not on the developer?
So only part. They take the hit for the 10% that they have to do under your inclusionary bylaw.
And then the trust finances the other 15%?
And then you would help them to finance making additional units affordable so that instead of only getting 10 affordable units, you get 100 on your books out of that one development.
But as far as the developer is concerned, their only investment is the 10%.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way of doing it. That's not the only
And
way
again,
of doing
these numbers are just for the
Right,
conversation.
but like that's a way that you can leverage having the 10% bylaw and having a housing trust and having these other things. You can kind of wait and build them up, and then you can have one project that kind of stacks all of those advantages that you've collected over time, if that makes sense. I don't know if that, like, I mean, there are various ways that you can do it. Like, so for instance, the concept of friendly 40B, and this, you may already know this, but I didn't know a lot before we started doing this about the concept of friendly 40Bs. The whole idea is, so with a 40B, they can ask to waive, as you know, any requirement that you would have or that the zoning board would have. And you don't have, like, you can appeal that, right? So it can make it very expensive for them because they're sitting on this piece of property that they can't develop until the appeal goes through, and it takes a lot of time, and they have to pay their counsel, and they have to do new plans to conform to whatever, and do, you know, more documentation. It's all very expensive. The idea of a friendly 40B is you tell them, look, you tell us what waivers you're going to need to ask for in order to make this work in terms of density, in terms of number of driveways, in terms of height, whatever the things are that they would want to waive, which on appeal they're probably going to win anyway, but towns push 40Bs off by spending a lot of money basically to tie it up in court. So with a friendly 40B, the idea is that you come in and you tell them, look, we're not going to do this. We're not going to tie you up in court. You're going to tell us what things you need to appeal, and we're going to say, yeah, okay, like we will not appeal that as long as you meet these requirements that we have in terms of amount of affordable housing that you produce.
And I think another key point on the local initiative program, which is like the friendly 40B, is that the town designates areas, locations of the town that they think would be appropriate for affordable housing. So I think that, I mean, that's a key point that I think the town and the residents can get behind, because we can, you know, we can all discuss and figure out an appropriate, you know, an appropriate location or several appropriate locations.
You can even solicit proposals for a particular plot. Like if it's a town-owned piece of land, that's another way that the town can get more of what it wants by saying to the developer, look, we're going to give you these advantages. And so even with non-40B projects, you can do similar things. You can tell them, look, you're going to do this project and we'd like you to do X amount of affordable housing. So here's the advantage we're going to give you to compensate for giving us what we want. So it's not like you're not just saying, hey, private corporation, like do this out of the goodness of your heart. That's not really how that works. Anyway.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
What's your time frame that you're supposed to complete the task? Have it rewritten and...
The housing production plan?
Yes.
The goal of Jim Johnson and our goal is before it expires on December 12th of this year. December 12th, 2018 is when it expires. We want to have it active because if there was a lapse and a 40B proposal hits the desk of Walpole, we wouldn't be as best equipped. We wouldn't have that safe harbor status I mentioned earlier. So that's our timeline. And
What's
we'll
the
have
process on that? Oh, I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
that's okay. I think that if, and I'm no expert, but I'll give you, just from, I wrote like 6 pages of notes from sitting, going through everything. I won't bore you with those, but, I think the big thing is, it's a short time frame. It's a lot to do.
Yeah.
And just, the only thing I'd say is go in eyes wide open, because there were just foolish little things that I even looking at the Mansfield one. And I looked at like the accessory housing. So what's to stop mom and pop from putting the accessory housing unit on? And they live in South Walpole, so every time there's a event at the stadium, they post it on Airbnb. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
just foolish little
I
slip
think
through the
not,
crack
not
things
all
like that
things
to
fit in with
restrict.
Walpole.
No, in
That would
Mansfield
be
and
one of
Walpole are
them that
very
I would-
different towns.
I
But
would not
I think it was good to have an
support.
example.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I think there's so much to consider.
That's great advice, and we will definitely have our eyes wide open. Mr. Conroy, could we just try to, you tell me what your schedule's like, if you need to move on, or if we could maybe tackle one more issue.
You asked the wrong guy that.
Yeah. What's your issue?
So we just wanted to talk to you about the Housing Choice Initiative program. This is something I believe some other planning board members have mentioned. The Baker-Polito administration has put forth legislation and requested in the budget for the state this year to get funds to essentially promote this Housing Choice Initiative program, which is to increase the housing stock in Massachusetts, and Eastern Massachusetts in particular is in a housing crisis. So the way they want to go about that is they have $10 million, and they got this in the budget, in funds that are eligible towns can get up to $500,000 to make infrastructure improvements if they demonstrate that they've built a certain percentage of new housing units in the past 3 or 5 years. And one of the things talking to the state, the Department of Housing and Community Development, is once these building permits of the developments downtown go online and hit the book, so to speak, in a calendar year, we're going to be eligible for this program starting next January 2019 to apply for these grants. Again, I believe it behooves every town official to seek out funds wherever they are, to at least consider it. And this is money that we would be passing up if we continue to remain ineligible. We are currently ineligible for 2 reasons. One, those developments haven't hit yet. They will as of the next calendar year. The second reason we're not eligible is because we have building moratoriums, or we had 2, now we have 1. The Central Business District building moratorium that expires this October makes us ineligible. And so I just wanted to throw that out to you. We can talk more about the Housing Choice Initiative, but please consider that. I know you're going to consider some fall town meeting zoning articles later tonight, and extending that CBD moratorium would essentially make Walpole ineligible for money from the state.
Okay. All right. My only comment, I mean, aside from whatever you got, Andrew, is the fact that you guys should be part of this stuff and you've never been. Meaning that you guys are the experts, are supposed to be the experts at all this. Well, you will be. But my point is, when these come in, there's nobody in this town hall knows what's going on about that. And my recommendation would be, if something comes in, that you guys, I don't know if you call it stewards or whatever, but you be like the first stop before the guy already rolls out his drawings in front of us. That would be my recommendation, that they should all come through you people first and lay out the options. Because nothing's worse, because they've already spent their money on this option, and it may not be the best for us. And
We want to do something before we get to that point. That's what I would.
that's what I'm
hope.
saying, that's
That's
why
what
they
he's
come
saying,
in.
go to
They
them
go
first.
No,
there.
before the 40B comes to.
No, not even the 40B, anybody that proposes something, they go see
Like
them.
if Corcoran came in and this was already in place, to see them first and find out what their options are before they
Yeah,
come to us.
that's
Is that
what I'm
you're
saying, yeah,
Yeah.
that they're the experts at this, and this is
Nothing's
our.
going to happen without the Board of Selectmen. That's my issue.
Well,
Like,
yeah, well,
they
they're,
need to be
this
on
is all,
board with
even this
doing
inclusionary this is a policy, they make policy, we just enforce whatever the rules are. But what I'd like to see is 100% is they come to you guys first. You know, we have a design review, and when a guy comes in, he wants to build something, well, we like this and this and this. Well, before they even put the pen to paper, they say, what do you guys think? Then you figure out before it comes, before everybody spends, because once you lock into it, nobody wants to bend from that. So if you have a bunch of options, you'd be able to help them. That's why, rather than the housing partnership show up every 5 years and redo this, right?
Yes,
Be step
exactly.
one in the whole deal. I think that would help 100%.
I just want to echo what you said, because I hope this committee presses the Board of Selectmen, the town administrator, to give us a seat at the table in the specific aspect that you mentioned, Jack, of when there's especially a big multifamily development, that we push the town to argue for that 25% number to help the overall affordable housing share. That's one tactic, and I'm speaking for myself now, I'm not speaking for the committee. That's one tactic I think we should pursue. The other tactic being on the smaller development levels, because we can't, negotiate, we're all citizen volunteers, we can't talk with every development that happens. That's where the inclusionary zoning bylaw comes in, and you can really get your numbers up through that, so.
Yeah. So I think,
I have one last question. Sorry, Jack. Just process-wise, it has to be active by the 12/18 date, not filed by then. So what's the process where, is it approved by the state? Is it approved by the town?
The way it's going to work in the RFP that we send out to the proposals is the consultant's going to meet with us initially, us being the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board, the Housing Partnership, is going to have a public hearing in the fall. We're going to have a draft proposal that every relevant board has input on. And then once there's a final proposal, it has to be voted on by those three committees again, the Board of Selectmen, the Planning Board. And once that's done, it's sent to the state and it gets certified.
And that certification is automatic once all the town boards have approved it and sent it forward?
I don't know the details of that. I think there's some vetting in terms of it has to meet the requirements of what a housing production plan is supposed to have. I don't know those requirements.
My only question is,
State's
how
perspective?
soon does it need to be sent to the state to ensure that we make that date?
November 30th is the deadline that the town administrator and formerly the town planner put forth. So if we can get everything voted on by November 30th, we send it to the state for approval, and hopefully there's zero or minimal overlap between when it expires and it's renewed.
Well, that's the plan, right? Because now that everybody knows this, you will have 40B developers at the starting gate, and if that's not in place, if they had any plans to do it, they'd file on the 19th, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess the last comment I'll make is I'm not a big fan of the word regulate. I would be interested to know if there are other very forward-thinking towns and cities that have found a way to incentivize these developers as opposed to regulate them. I would rather give than force, so I don't need any answers now, but that is always my thought process, and I'm wondering if some exploration could be done in that area.
And again, we don't have time for it tonight, I know, but two of the items on the agenda, upzoning and overlay districts, these are ways that you in your own power can propose zoning bylaws to the town meeting and change, say, a zoning overlay district for around the central business district and into the GR, for instance, that allows for denser developments than the current limitations. You can change your dimensional regulations to loosen up and allow for these bigger multifamily developments in areas that you deem appropriate. That's a great way to incentivize developments that would, on
It's
the
a
whole.
win-win. The developer wins, the town wins, everybody moves forward.
Yeah, and we didn't have time for that, but lots of options. We
Okay,
have to work
good.
with you in the future.
Great.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
See you November 29th. All right. Next. We have a continued public hearing for site plan for Canna Homes, 763, 765 Main Street, 1801. And what we have from the engineer, that the engineer has requested that they extend time limit, that we take action until September 30th, 2018. I'll make a motion to accept that.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, now, and there'll be a date in September, Kate?
September 6th, we have Renmar on. September 20th, nothing.
Okay, you gave it to us the end of, yeah, we can do it 20th? Yeah, okay.
7:30?
Yes, September 20th at 7:30. Yep. one. Bring her up.
This pond.
All right. We have a continued public hearing for Nichols Pond. We also have a couple issues. We don't have any new information. That's one problem. So without any new information, submitted at the last hearing, as we know, we voted down the waiver, so we don't have any plans, so we gotta fish or cut bait on that. All right, so I don't know if everybody's following what I'm saying, but we don't have a plan in front of us. There's nothing to take action on. We had voted it down, the waiver, so without anything here, there's no information, so.
Would the applicant be here to speak to that?
Well, you can be here, I mean, but right now, there's not a whole lot to speak to. I mean, we had a plan that could turn down, we don't have anything new, so.
Chairman, submitted the continuance letter that we'd like to continue.
Yeah,
There's not a full board, we'd like to continue.
I understand that, but even, we still don't have anything of which to, no, you submitted a letter giving us an extension, correct?
Isn't it closed? I mean, isn't the...
The hearing's still
The
going.
hearing's closed.
The hearing's still going.
Oh,
We just
it is.
voted the waiver.
Oh.
We haven't closed the hearing. But,
I'm here tonight just to, submitted this letter for asking for continuance. So we have a full board.
okay, well, let's get down to brass tacks, Dave. You gonna submit us anything on the non-waived plan?
Mr. Chairman, I'm here just asking for continuance tonight.
Okay, I understand that, and I'm asking you, this is what we have for the non-waived plan. The waived plan was voted down. We need something that meets the rules and regulations of this subdivision control law for the town.
I don't know what to tell you, other than I thought that, after talking to the neighbors and everyone, that we thought that it would be best to continue to September.
Okay?
Have a full board.
Okay. The question is, will you be submitting the non-waived plan?
Mr. Chairman, as I said, I'm just here tonight to continue through to September. That's what we're asking for, continuance.
Okay, then what would, and if you get the continuance, what will you be giving, what will you be doing at the next hearing with a full board? If it's to reconsider, that's not on the table, your request, because it's with us. I'm asking, right now, we have nothing. This should be just voted down, has to be, because you have nothing here. You haven't, I told you and your engineer way back, I've said it many times, you need your regular plan, because if the waiver goes down, doesn't matter what the waiver is, if it goes down, that's all you have here, it's over. Well, right now, you have nothing, so it would be over.
Mr. Chairman, is there a mechanism to have a waiver reconsidered or no? I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, there is.
I think that's where Mr. Wayfield intends to go.
Yeah, I know, and he's waiting for the third vote. I understand that, but we got this open now, and that we're continuing, so. The question being, are we going to have a plan or not?
I'll check with the engineer. I know how we left it the last time. I thought that tonight, the only issue would be the continuance until September, when we have a full board, and that the neighbors are here, or anybody else that's part of this situation.
Well, that was, yeah, but that was not discussed at the board last time. All we did was vote the waiver down. I mean, we disapproved the waiver. Now we're going back. We still don't have a plan in front. of us. Right now, we open the hearing without a plan. How are we supposed to go?
Well, tonight, as I mentioned, I don't know how else to say it, Mr. Chairman, but I'm requesting it continues through to September.
Okay, and as I've said, it is, I can't continue nothing. How do you continue nothing? We have nothing, you don't have a plan in front of us. You understand that? There is nothing in front of us right now.
Mr. Wakefield, are you working on anything to present to us if you get the continuance at the next hearing date?
Certainly, we would come fully prepared for the next meeting in September, if that's what the board's request is.
Whether that be a reconsideration of the variance or a new plan without the variance, correct?
Again,
Some new
whatever's
information.
required, I would bring to this.
Some new yeah, right.
Not the same information.
What's that?
We would probably like to see something new information, something new to consider, new plans. Something new. I don't know that anybody's
don't-
gonna have a change of heart.
But the point I'm making very simply is, they took a chance, they went to the edge, and they fell off. Had they had a regular non-wavered plan, which they're required to do, and Mr. Truax and I battled, and he's still yet to point it out in the book, he didn't do it. So that's what's the chance you take. So basically, you have a plan that didn't meet the rules and regs, and that this board, because it was a waiver, voted the waiver down, so our only alternative is to go to the non-wavered plan, but we don't have that to vote on, because it never got submitted, so therefore, everything becomes dead.
Doesn't he have an option to continue? Like
Not
as
when
the
we have,
applicant?
when he has stuff in here, but he doesn't.
I think what Jack's trying to say is if they had presented both plans like
I understand,
required,
but
we'd
he
have
doesn't
something in
have the
file,
option,
but
just
since
as
it
the
was
applicant,
rejected, there's nothing in
no
the
matter
file.
what, to just continue?
He would have if we had information, sir. We don't have anything. What are we, okay, right now, what are we continuing? We have no new information here.
This hearing was open, a long time ago, and we've had a number of continuances, and we're asking for continuance through September so that we can have a full.
Understood, and that's within your rights if we allow that, but also we had stuff that had to be done, was gonna get done, you had to change this and this. Right now, I keep going back to this, this folder's empty. So to continue an empty folder, you can't.
Are you going to have everything that we need under the regulations that, how far in advance we need
Certainly.
the new information prior to whatever date we set?
Certainly, if we could be continued through to September, we'd be glad to do that. We could have a full board. We understand that we need to have a full board on this matter.
On what matter?
This year, this.
You don't need a full board for a subdivision, all you need is 3. Well, why don't I just call the spade a spade? You're looking for that tie-breaking vote. That's what this is about.
We're requesting a continuance through to September.
Yeah, waiting for the tie-breaking vote. But once again, we don't have, right now, we're dealing with a hearing that was opened, that was continued, and we should be looking at some plans that you had to show where you stop at the 750 feet and go through the review. We don't have that, and you are asking us to give you an extension on nothing. How do you do that? You can't.
Well, we still have an open hearing, correct?
We have an open hearing, but, okay, it's open.
All right,
We're
so
open right
let's
now.
act let's act like he got sick, couldn't be here, we would continue it.
But we would have something in our file, Mark. This was like the night Petrosi didn't show up for his site plan. He didn't show to do it. He didn't have anything to present. The same thing here. There is nothing for the applicant to present to this board tonight.
Will we have something, will you be presenting something to us before the next date if we continue it?
Yes.
All right,
We
so
can
there you
continue.
go.
Okay,
September, we could.
It's
have
okay.
all that.
Will you be submitting the non-wavered plan?
If that's the request that you have.
No, it's not a request, David. It's a I'm not good at playing, I don't play these little English games. We're not requesting, it's a requirement. So don't make it sound like we are requesting it. It's in the book. You have to do it. You have to fulfill the requirements. Are you gonna fulfill the requirements?
At the next meeting in September, we'd be glad to do that, yes.
You will have a non-wavered plan at the next meeting.
Yes. If the meeting is in September, I'd be glad to submit that plan to you.
And and you need this September for the fifth member, correct?
We are asking, as all the meetings, we've asked for a full board.
Mhm.
Each and every meeting we've asked, and it had a full board.
My own opinion, doing this for a long time, is you can't continue hearing with nothing in your folder. What do we continue? We continue with nothing. Nothing new. It was just like the waiver was actually a vote no. So we should have been focusing on the non-waiver plan, but we still don't have that, so.
What would somebody need to file if they intend to have us reconsider the waiver plan?
They can't make that reconsideration. It's not up to them.
Well, what I mean is there a mechanism that the applicant is allowed to ask for?
No.
There isn't, okay.
No. It's a board decision. It's like asking a judge to reconsider, or the jury, can you reconsider your verdict? No.
Is there a mechanism for him to appeal that decision?
Appeal what decision?
The denial of the waiver?
No, because it's a waiver. Waivers are non-deniable. That's why they're called waivers.
Non-appealable.
Non-appealable. You can't, you can't.
Again, I don't know the answers to those
Waiver's a
questions.
waiver. I mean, either you get it or you don't. If you don't get it, you can't go down to the court and say, well, I didn't get it. And they're just gonna go, well, it was a waiver.
Can we continue it? Tell him what he is required to file with us before that date and what dates he's required to file those, and that's it?
Okay, well,
He
first
either
off,
does it or doesn't.
we shouldn't be telling him because we're not his legal advice, and if we tell him something wrong, he'll use that against us. They know how to file it. They know what's required. They're big boys. They're employing a lot of people that get paid a lot of money to be experts at this, so. But still, my opinion right now, I think we're on shaky ground in the fact that we have nothing, and to continue on nothing is very difficult.
I think that the residents that are impacted with this have been told that he was going to ask for a continuance and they are not present. So I think it's important for us to give him the benefit of the doubt as a courtesy to the abutters, grant him his extension, and if he doesn't come in with everything he needs, that's it. There's no more chances, as far as I'm concerned. But I think it's more important that the abutters get proper information, and I believe they believe that they were going to get an extension and a continuance, and that's why they're not here.
But we weren't the ones who misled them.
Yes.
No, we weren't. But at the end of the day, like I said before with the other thing, it doesn't matter what the intentions are. What matters to me is, what is the outcome going to be for these people that are impacted by this project?
But once
Not
again,
Mr. Wakefield.
once again, we're being deemed the bad guy, because if we don't give him an extension, we're not doing the neighbors a favor. We didn't, just like Katie said, we didn't do this. We're being, trying to hold, not get mad, I've been told, take deep breaths and all that. A lot of deep breaths, but the fact is, I'm just about up to here with being made the bad guy on this. We've been played since last August, and I'm not getting played anymore. I mean, everything's been done behind the back and this and that. For him to go to that's up to him. But you know what he could have done, because it wouldn't be the first time someone's done it, is say, yeah, I'm gonna continue it, and if you get neighbors you hate, and then you go open it. So, but it still comes down to, we have nothing here from a legal standpoint. We have nothing. Do you agree? Do you agree you have no plan in front of us?
I believe that we have a full file and that we.
Do you have a plan in front of us that we could approve and build off of right at this moment?
The 750 has not been submitted, no.
But you don't have a plan in front of us. That's my point.
Could we continue this till September, Mr. Chairman? We
Can you answer the question though, please?
What's that?
Do we have a plan in front of us right now
No, you
that
have
we could
just a
approve?
request-
So,
a
so
request
you're
for
asking
continuance.
us to sit here and continue something on something we don't even have in front of us.
Are you still working on a plan and you need till September to submit it?
I'd like to, yes, if that's what it takes. I'm here for continuance, and we've had a number of continuances, and we've asked for a full board at each time.
Okay, then forget the board. Why don't we have the waiver plan? That was the non-waiver plan. It had nothing to do with how many members. That should have been submitted right after the denial of the waiver.
I don't know what the time is, John, but we don't have that plan tonight, and I'm asking for a continuance until September.
Okay, what I'm gonna say is, and I'll say it very clearly, if there was a plan in here that you'd submitted to us, like you should, I would've said, fine, Dave, we'll see you in September. But it's not here. I have nothing. So basically it was, I'm not gonna do it. So you're asking me to continue something, you didn't even do what you're supposed to do.
I will have the plan for you.
But,
I will, if we continue this to September, I will have everything that you asked for.
Should we make a motion to do something?
what's your motion gonna be?
To continue, or if you wanna make a motion to deny, I mean,
I would make a motion to
it's
continue.
just, we're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, and one of the things is I can be stubborn, but only if people are being stubborn back at me. I only want what we need. I haven't asked for anything
No, I agree
more.
with you, Joe.
So it's like,
I agree with you
but in your
completely.
motion, please,
but
you're
to
gonna have to
have-
put it so that the way you word it, because I'm not gonna get our butt in a sling because we word something wrong and he gets it by default because we did something we shouldn't have done. That's the other thing. Remember, we can get, being a nice guy, you know, the old saying, nice guys, you know, finish last, or, you know, you be nice to somebody and you always get it in the end. That's what we're running the risk. Whether you like a project, I've always said, or not, if it's done by the rules, I don't care. But I don't want to put us in a position that we screwed something up and then boom, off to the races, that's all. So whoever wants to make a motion on what you want, just go ahead.
Make a motion to continue the hearing
No,
for do I need an extension?
no, you should probably do the extension first.
Extension through September 30th, so we need.
Yeah, probably. Make a motion for an extension through September 30th?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussions? All those in favor of extending it to the 30th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. What'd you do?
I'm opposed because we begged for that plan. We asked for it. I mean,
Not a vote. Also, the vote to deny would probably be not a vote.
we had, I mean, how much time did we spend in a meeting on that?
I
How much
understand,
time?
I
We
understand, yeah.
begged.
But if
So-
any other project, for whatever reason, I mean, the sticking point is what Jack's excellent point is, we don't have anything to continue. So any other project, if they were just whatever, somebody was sick, they could continue, but we would have something in front of us. Right now, he's right, we don't have anything, so.
Okay, well, you just said it. I'll make a motion to approve the plan. Do I have a second?
What plan?
What plan?
That's what I'm saying. I'm making the motion. That's right. What plan? I'm making a motion to approve the submission.
When was that non-waiver plan due to us, based on this
At the
hearing
first,
date?
at the first submission, when
the
he
waiver
requested a
plan was
waiver?
sent in.
And so when the
I mean, we
waiver,
typically ask for
right,
It has to
a
be.
non-waiver
and there wasn't one
plan.
there?
No.
Been asking for it for 11 months.
Is there a reason why we don't have that? Please just answer it directly. Is there a reason why we don't have that?
We don't have the plan tonight. We can have it in September. There is no other reason we don't have it tonight. We're looking at a continuance tonight.
And you'll have it in September?
Yes, sir.
And if you don't have it in September,
I don't want to come back, I don't want to sign up for another year.
if you don't have it in September, everything's gonna get denied. Cause
We'll
we
have-
can't
we'll have-
hold Jack off for long. He's already ready to
Once again, you're
hit me
not,
over the head with a,
it's not, I'm just trying to do what's the requirements.
and if these neighbors weren't involved, I'm telling you, Mr. Wakefield, I would be right next to Jack on this. I only care about the fact that they're not represented here tonight, because a continuance is usually fairly automatic. But the chairman's correct. If we've been waiting for that long, by rights, we should just say no. Fortunately for you, I care more about the residents of this town than I do about the developer. And I'm willing to extend myself and bend for them. So please, if the chairman is so inclined to make this continuance happen, you gotta show up with that plan. If you don't show up with that plan, then you make me a fool, you make Sarah a fool, and you make him right, and believe me, when
Not
Jack's
just
right,
show up, but submit it
submit it
far
with the
ahead of
plan.
time, at the appropriate deadline, so that we can
Please.
review it and have a productive meeting.
To date, we've met every deadline. This one we didn't. We asked for continuance.
Okay.
Revote that? Don't
We
matter.
already did a vote, but I will make a correction, just so it's on the record, so if we do get sued, and when it goes, just like I went through with Toll Brothers, but I never got to appear, is the fact that we don't request this. This is a requirement. I can't emphasize that enough. We didn't ask for him, and he's just been taking his time. That should have been on the top, waivers on the bottom. So I just want to make that clear. We're not asking for anything that beyond what's in the book, that's all. But, okay, I'll make a motion to approve of the plan that was given to us.
I don't understand what plan, we can't vote on.
You can vote on that waiver plan, you can vote on the waiver plan.
So what do we, say it again?
I make a motion to approve the plan as shown.
No, we already denied the waiver.
You denied the waiver, but you still have a plan, you can still vote on that.
So what are we voting on?
You're voting
To extend the
No.
plan?
to whether you approve it or not.
We can't.
I think we should just, I think we should just vote the continuance, give him the extension, vote the continuance. Jack, I understand your point, you are correct,
If
one
you-
hundred percent, but
If
there's
we
too many
vote
other
that, we
people
have to deny it.
involved.
There's nothing,
There's too many other people involved that have put a lot of time and effort into this for his lack of following the rules to affect abutters who are really just gonna get whatever he decides to do. I wanna give this extension simply to give the abutters a chance to be here to speak their mind.
All right, since we're doing horse trading, I'll trade a horse. You want a reconsideration on the extension, then I want it known that there's no reconsideration of the waiver.
So what would that mean? He'd have to refile a new waivered plan?
No, he has to give us the non-waived plan.
He
But
has
it-
to do that anyways.
Correct, but at the next meeting, there's not gonna be brought up that we're gonna go back on our vote.
Right, but he could come with two plans, a new
No,
plan with different
he
waivers?
He can't come with a new plan, he's already submitted, those are already in motion, that non-waived plan, the waived plan. That's already been denied.
No, I understand, but couldn't he come in and ask for different waivers?
No, he could ask, right now, the way he's going, is if he drops the new plan in, what's he supposed to, he still has that non-waived plan, and if he gets the third vote, then he gets what he wants, his waiver. My point is, you want the extension, you don't want this to go down, then fine, I'll be more than willing to do it, but I'm not gonna entertain any going back on what we voted for at the last meeting.
Right, but what I'm saying is he could ask for different,
He may be acquiescing to things that he didn't do before that now have changed
he
maybe
can't
our
ask for
outlook on it.
reconsideration on the one that was voted down, but he could come in with a different, not the exact same one, he could come in with a different waivered plan and
No, you
ask-
can't keep doing it, the plan's the plan, once it's done.
But there were some criteria that were asked of Mr. Wakefield that he was not ready to agree to. And he may be ready now. Negotiations may have been happening, we don't know that. That would be beneficial, that would end up being a win-win for everybody involved. But if we cut that off before we hear what they all have to say, including the abutters, then
Well, it's very obvious, and, I'm not a politician, I'm straight down the middle, that's one of the things with me, and I know what's being done. It's set up so when Joe gets back, he can work on Joe to make him the third vote to reconsider. I know how it's going. So I, right now, am gonna use my balance of power, so to speak, and say, I know where it's going, but if you don't want us to just kill it right now, then that's not on the table.
Where does it stand right now with the vote we took? What happens next?
We have
It
to
was
vote.
2-2.
We have to vote.
No, we voted though.
Yeah, I know, but we could reschedule
Not a
it for
vote.
August. When's it up, Kate? August 3rd, no, it's at the end of this month. So tonight, right now, if we don't give them extensions, fish or cut bait, right here.
Right here. The extension's up July
For the
31st.
first, yep.
so are we going to, because everybody on this list tonight is gonna ask for an extension, or a continuance based on the fact that we don't have a full board. Are we gonna use that same criteria?
But the sticking point is we don't have a plan in front of us.
That's
I
the
mean,
sticking point.
That's
I agree.
that's a very important point.
What I started out is if you put it in, Mark, you already would have been out of here. We'd see you in September.
Right, some sheet with 750, whatever.
We just have to understand that we cannot let the games that Mr. Wakefield is playing hurt the abutters that trusted the fact that they were gonna get an extension of time and decided not to come, even though they've been here for, it seems like dozens of hearings on this, and fought very hard to find solutions.
So if it gets voted down,
Mhm.
there's nothing to stop Mr. Wakefield from refiling, am I correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
You can do it tomorrow.
So it's not like it's dead?
No.
It's a
It's a
situation
refile.
of he'd just have to
Pay all the new
refile?
fees.
Yeah, you just refile. Yep.
So Jack, what you were offering is if we continued, there's no reconsideration of any additional length, 750.
Correct.
So not 751, 750
Just non-wavered, non-wavered on the dead end length, yep.
on the length.
Mr. Chairman, I could not agree to that. There's been some discussions with the neighbors and other people that the best way to approach this may be a reconsideration, but tonight I'm just asking for a continuance into September. For the good of the neighbors and for everyone here, all this time's invested. I will have those plans in September at the meeting to be designated, if we can tonight, and we can settle everything up in September. But again, I've requested a full board at each and every meeting that we've had. I don't know how many that's been, but it's been a few.
All right, so my turn to volley back is you made a proposal and you had the votes, had you done that before, that you would have had your waiver. But when you got denied, now all of a sudden you got a cave. Had you done that before, I think you offered sprinklers, you would have got your votes. But now when you get denied, now you're trying to, everything is just a little, I'm not gonna give that, and it's like, we're going for minimum. I don't like being played, and this is what's happening. You're playing, at least with me, I don't know how everybody else feels, you're playing with this board, and you're also playing with the abutters by telling them, you know, you're gonna get a continuance and this and that, and so on.
Mr. Chairman, the abutters know everything that I have done. I am in constant contact with them, and they are aware that a continuance is going to be asked for tonight. That's probably why they didn't come. But there is nothing that these abutters don't know and these neighbors don't know. They are up to speed on everything. And we work very closely together since day one. There's not any sunlight between the abutters, the neighbors, and myself.
And they're acutely aware that you didn't submit the non-wavered plan as required?
Well, that's my side. I didn't do that. But that's typically, the mechanics would not be involved potentially with the neighbors, but I did not put that plan in. So if there's a hit, I'll take the hit. But as far as working with the neighbors, working with the town, I've tried to do the best I can. As far as the neighbors, we have worked with them on every aspect of this situation. We've actually had so again, I'm just here tonight and respectfully requesting a continuance through and including September 30th.
You're using the word respect. You don't respect this board because you didn't do what you've been told that you had to do. That's disrespect. You've done, since last August, you've tried to do it your way. You've disrespected the board. I know you've disrespected me because I said you needed it, you needed it, you needed it, and you continue to say to me. So that's disrespect. I don't want to hear the word respect anymore regarding this because you've disrespected me, you disrespected the whole process and everything that goes along with it. I want to make it about neighbors and everything else. Had you done the proper process, you wouldn't have put yourself in this situation, but you did. We didn't put you in this situation, you did.
I think really, I mean, what Katie's saying, the best way to go about it is to just
Refile.
start fresh.
I think it's in your
there's,
best interest
there's really,
to do it clean and refile. I don't think it's gonna benefit you the other way.
it's just playing with air. Here,
that's
I
what-
mean,
yeah.
And I think
nothing,
that's why
nothing to
we-
say you can't refile
No, and I think
and
that's why
propose
we
your new changes.
discussed it so much at the meeting of why a non-waiver plan was needed. We discussed it and discussed it and discussed it.
There is another,
We've spent a lot of time
there's another,
reviewing these plans, talking to the applicant.
there's another option, rather than going through the whole denial process, the applicant could request to withdraw without prejudice.
Okay,
And that just wipes the slate clean, it's like it never happened, and you start anew.
okay.
Well, tell me what you think the best way to approach this, Mr. Chairman.
I think that's it.
Withdraw without prejudice,
All right, that'll be fine.
okay? And then you refile, and you'll have your new plan, and it'll be a whole new ballgame. Which will,
If this doesn't, if tonight, it doesn't go forward for continuance, I'm not sure what else could be done here, other than to withdraw.
okay, are you gonna withdraw?
Well, if that's the choice we have here, then,
Based upon your state of drawings and everything else, there's no reason you can't be on September anyway.
what was that part?
Based upon the state of the drawings you should have had and everything else, there's no reason you wouldn't be back here in September anyway.
With your new
In other words,
plans.
if you
Still with a new
withdraw
file.
and then
Yeah.
refile, you could still
It's
have
not
that
costing
September
any
date.
time.
You're not losing clock.
The only thing you'll lose is their filing fees again.
Well,
There's
I-
spot in September, potentially, yeah.
I guess there's only two choices, either you continue through September on this full board, or I withdraw and either submit or don't submit at another time. Is that the choice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you wanna do?
Does he have a choice when he refiles, it's starting clean, so he can ask for
Yes.
different variances,
It's
do the
all
whole
new
thing?
slate, whatever he
So,
wants to do.
without
Bring whatever
prejudice.
new deals
Whatever,
to the
yeah.
plate?
This file
We're
goes
not gonna
over
hold
there.
any of this against him, right?
It just makes the review by the different departments quicker, because they'll probably be the same plan. But he can start whatever he wants to do again. It's a matter of, if he wants to put the waiver plan, but he's gotta have the other plan too, and if it gets voted in for the waiver, that's fine. But,
I think that's the best way to do it.
so, what would you like to do, Mr. Wakefield?
Well, I guess you've kinda specified what's the best approach here, so I think when you know where you're at, the best thing to do is to withdraw the plan without prejudice, as suggested, and I guess we could start fresh and we'd be done with it.
Yep. Yeah, you know what, yeah, this is not.
Otherwise, if there's no continuance, I don't see where we could go to.
Okay, so you're giving us that. Okay, I'll make a motion to allow the applicant to withdraw without prejudice. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yes?
But what's the story with the fees?
I knew that's coming. Well, what,
Well,
you do what, you know, everybody gets here and wants to do them. Why don't you submit the stuff? We'll see how it goes and then let the board vote. But Dave, remember, there's only 4 of us here to vote for the fees. You're gonna want your 5th.
Can I ask the question?
And I know why you don't want your 5th, because your 5th always wants all the fees.
I might have to go have a fifth tonight.
That will have to be considered when you file. We can't make that determination. If you don't file for 2 years, we can't make that determination.
We did on the other project, and the board was voted to credit the applicant for the fees.
Just
So I'm asking for-
file your plan and you'll get,
I'm asking for a little guidance here, Mr. Chairman.
just file your plan and we'll hold a check and that night, doesn't go anywhere. We've done that in the past, right, Kate? Just sits in the folder and then it's up to you, ask for the board when we open the hearing. That's all. All right?
All right, I was just looking for a little guidance on that. Yes, I got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're all set?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, next one, Pinnacle.
Jack, can I have that back, please?
Yeah.
I don't know, sorry, that's why.
Okay, with the hour being after 7:40, we had a continued public hearing for Pinnacle Multifamily. And we have from the engineer, we have a request for an extension through September 30th. Take action. I'll make that as a motion. Do I have a second?
Aye, second.
Yeah, okay. All in favor through the 30th, say aye.
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 Okay, there we go. And the next available meeting, which will be on,
September
So-
6th
no,
or
the
September
we
20th?
already have booked, so it'll be the 20th. Remember, we had to push,
I only have Renmar on the 6th.
yeah, but then we push someone else to the 20th?
We pushed Cana home.
Yeah,
What about
put it to,
Pulte?
yeah, put it to the 20th, then, yep, okay. We'll continue this public hearing at 7:35 on September 20th. And there will be no notices given, okay? And now we're down to 7:45, Worthington Green. The woodworkers.
Jeff, I also need to know what they wanna do with this,
To do what?
what they're.
Oh,
doing
yeah.
their subdivision.
Can we bang one out right now?
Well, I don't know what they wanna do.
No, that's what I'm gonna ask them. We'll take that off. You guys got in front of us, High Bridge preliminary. You still wanna do that, or you just gonna say forget it?
We'd like, Mr. Chairman, if I may, we'd like to continue that.
Oh, you wanna keep it in motion then?
That would be great.
Okay, so we don't have to take it
I
up
need a
tonight?
I need an extension.
Why, we have a time, oh yeah, we have a time,
Please, yeah.
okay, 45 days. Can we need an extension to the end of September?
Sure.
Okay, make a motion to allow the applicant for the preliminary to up and through September 30th, 2018.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we take that off.
Thank you.
All right. That's it, I'm sorry, down here, Kate pointed out. That's that preliminary they're doing.
Oh, okay.
So just,
So that's
so we're
going.
not hanging here that way.
Gotcha.
Jeff, this is, had a hard time putting some together because some went to me and some didn't.
Okay. All right, the hour being after 7:45 and 7:46, we have a continued site plan, 18-2, and a continued special permit, 18-3, for Worthington Green. Okay. And I believe last time we did traffic, correct?
That is
We're
correct.
dead, is that dead?
No.
No?
Well,
Because,
at the last meeting, Mr. Chairman, we reviewed traffic again, and we had our traffic consultant here, Bob Michaud from MDM, and we went over our mitigation commitments to the board, and we got further feedback from the board. I think we got a lot of positive feedback from the board, and I think we were asked to investigate a couple of the intersections a little bit further. You were looking for us to look at the School Street and East Street intersection a little bit further, and also the High Plain intersection a little bit further. And Matt Leidner with CDG is here, and he had a short presentation to give to the board. And I think the first thing you wanted to talk about was an update in the memorandum that Bob Michaud submitted subsequent to that meeting with some updates for you.
okay, one of the reasons I brought it was, that's what we're all,
Sure.
we played traffic engineers at the last meeting, but the other thing I wanna say is, as much as we love it, we can't do off-site stuff, as you know, so you'd have to go see the Board of Selectmen. So whatever we say we think is good,
Yes.
I know Maggie's works with us all, but you'll have to go get them to,
Yeah.
and my request would be that they give you a nod in favor prior to we close it and write a decision.
Okay.
Because we need that. We need to say that the selectmen have agreed or something, or they send us a letter. We
We'll
wanna
work
clo-
on that right away.
wanna close the loop, yeah, because you don't wanna get down, all of a sudden we're ready to go, and then you can't meet what's on your
Yeah.
plan, and the building inspector says no, and you get tied up.
So we'll meet with them right away, but, hopefully they'll see it favorably, because we did spend a lot of time meeting with, police and fire.
Well, what you're trying to do, I don't think you're gonna get unfavorable,
Yeah.
but you're gonna get tweaked, or maybe,
Okay, fair enough. But we did make some tweaks,
okay.
since the last board meeting that I think you all will appreciate.
All right, you ever known a politician not wanting to tweak on TV? That's us.
All right, so good evening, board members, Mr. Chairman, Kate, Maggie, Matt Leidner with Civil Design Group. So just to follow up on that and kind of close the loop on where we ended up last time we were before you, which was June 7th, we did submit, and actually MDM, the traffic engineer for Pulte, did submit a follow-up memorandum based on the feedback that we received at the last planning board meeting. And specifically, the changes that were addressed in that follow-up memorandum of 620 were that the intersection of East Street and School Street, there were questions about the crosswalks and the need for the rapid flashing pedestrian beacon at that intersection. And so the updated plan that was submitted on the 20th, June 20th, it eliminated the crosswalk east of that. So there was a crosswalk on each side. It eliminated the one on the east side, kept the proposed crosswalk on the west side, and then because it's now only one crosswalk, we've added the pedestrian flashing beacon in. The concern was with two crosswalks, there might be some confusion with drivers and the flashing if we were to add it in. So we've gone ahead and done that, updated the conceptual plan, and submitted that to you. And then East Street and High Plain, I believe the request, those two.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, can you just clarify, is the beacon on just East Street, or is it on High Plain also?
I believe it's just on East.
That's correct.
Yes, right.
Are those
Do we have
beacons activated by the crosser, or are they always flashing like the ones on East Walpole? In other words, are they the ones when you press, then it starts, or that we have ones on Washington, East Walpole, that are just always saying, you know, there's a crosswalk here, so
I don't like those.
look for
These were
people.
activated by the
Okay, that's what I was hoping
what I
for.
envisioned.
Yeah, okay.
That's right. Okay, so, so you have those plans, and so tonight, we are scheduled to discuss, the next topics of discussion are stormwater and sewer and water. And so, if it's all right, I'd like to just run through some updates on those items, and then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Can I suppose I can, I don't have my gavel, I gotta get my hammer back, but, I wanna read the comments from the different boards, so we get those out, so
Okay,
that
sure.
we don't, and I guess cover us with paper, I guess. All right, I'm gonna pick them out here because I got so many and I hate emails. All right, first one, we have one from the sewer and water dated June 26th. At their meeting on the 25th, the water and sewer met with the Pennington Crossing, okay. And after discussion, it was voted 5-0-0 for approval of water and sewer connections. So from that, it's done. Found a Board of Health one. At their meeting of June 19th, the board voted unanimously that the three recommendation outlined the traffic, it doesn't make sense. Voted unanimously that the three recommendations outlined the traffic peer review are appropriate. And they're in agreement with everything, so I guess that's, let's see, I don't wanna miss anything. Water and sewer analysis, that doesn't matter. Here's one. Yeah, I'm digging down here, just bear with me. From Deputy Fire Chief Paul Barry, dated June 6th. Fire Department reviewed it and said traffic review of March 8th neglects to mention the intersection East and School Street, which, when was our last meeting on this? I think you've since addressed it, he's going off to March.
We have.
And the site distance suggests moving the driveway in Kendall Street further west. Their only request is to keep it gated for emergency. I think we've done that.
Correct.
And the Worthington Green, sounds too close. That's where they changed it from Washington Green, so that's where you got your change.
Correct. That's
And
the
let's see, from Landis Hershey Conservation Conservation Commission closed their hearings on July 11th. And the stormwater consultant, John Chestia, is that how you pronounce it?
Chesia.
Chesia, attended the meeting, and based upon the report, at the public hearing with the applicant, the commission instructed the applicant their concerns at infiltration of stormwater meet the consultant's report requirements, and that the applicant instructed to revise a few outstanding concerns as noted by the review to fully address the infiltration comments. The order of conditions were issued conditioned upon receiving the following items. The infiltration rates for the basins and roof drain infiltration systems need to be consistent with standards 2 and 3. I assume you have all this. All right, but I'm reading for everybody here and at home. The requirement to locate basins 50 feet from the wetlands was waived because the nature of the site redeveloped are consistent with other approved projects. Mounting information to be updated and submitted, outlet structure to be moved further from the berm, dry stormwater quality swale added to design, operating and maintenance plan updated, modeling of emergency spillway as broad crested weirs, condition, details of the entire roof drainage system shall be provided to Concom prior to issuance of building permit, and the foundation drain shall not be lower than the water table. Gee, that's a kind of new engineering thing to have. Usually works better like that. Community development, his comments were dated July 12th, and he indicated that the drafts of age verification survey matched the deed Worthington condominium and declaration of trust docs was submitted on April 6th. And does the board ever want the council to perform a cursory review? I don't know about that. I don't know what we've done in the past. And you don't get involved in condo docs. We don't care about condo docs, at least in my, being a condo owner. Only they care. Phasing, no formal letter has been received from the fire department. Oh, construction phasing, but as indicated, they were in agreement with the internal road construction phasing plan, which was memorialized on April 6th. Off-site improvements, while the items agreed upon, a phasing plan to implement them should be agreed upon. And let's see, and will a performance guarantee be required to secure the completion of landscape drain and parking? And Mike, on the, in your portion, and we can't bond that.
We don't bond on site
But
plans.
they will have to do a bond for when they go
For the
do
work
it.
in the public way, absolutely, for their driveway and for the other 3 locations. We've had that discussion, they're aware.
Okay, so, all right, so we don't bond anything on yours, we can't. And there was something about, on phasing, on how you, did you guys submit, you haven't submitted anything on phasing, how you, 2 phases, how this is gonna be built out and how you do the traffic whenever, the improvements.
We did submit a letter.
Is that the one that came the other day?
Yes,
Oh,
because we met with
Okay.
with Maggie on Monday.
That's where that was going, okay.
That's
I haven't
right.
really read it, cause it just came the other day and I worked my way down the pile, but okay. As long as something's in and we're moving forward with that.
Just, Mr. Chairman, the phasing of in the project itself, not the off-site improvements, that was submitted long ago. We just reiterated the same thing in this letter that we submitted earlier this week. So the phasing the proposed phasing was issued to the planning board, our proposal on April 6th.
Okay. Question, and I don't mean to hold you up from your presentation when we're talking phasing. Is the intent to build it all out at once?
No.
Okay.
No, as opposed to a rental community where they usually build it all at once and lease it all up at once. These are all home ownership and for sale. So we would build the first building. So our intention would be to build building number 1 first. And when the sales are about halfway through the building, we would then go and pour the foundation of building number 2.
Gotcha.
And then, you know, as you complete building 1, and then you start to sell out building 2, we would build the foundation of building 3. So it would be a rolling kind of construction process. And so throughout the course of the project, we would have probably 2 buildings under construction at the same time, but not all of them.
Okay, and like I said, I don't wanna keep going back.
That's okay.
If your phasing letter, does that indicate what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do that, or not? The reason I'm bringing it up is
Yeah,
we've
no.
had developers in the past doing subdivisions, and they only wanna go halfway. And I said, you wanna go halfway, then you're gonna have to put a cul-de-sac in. They all call it temporary. No, it's a regular cul-de-sac that you gotta bond to, cause if they ever not finish, you have to have an accepted road, then it goes away when they continue. Same thing here, there's gonna be certain items that you should get sign-offs, so we should all have sign-offs from the police and fire, what they need
Right.
to get that. That's all I'm saying, is they're the 2 ones that are really,
We worked
So-
that out.
Oh, you have, okay.
I would love to.
So
do
on
that.
April,
no, that's fine. I mean, I know we're not doing tonight, I'm just giving you a heads up when you do a phasing. Okay.
right, so on April 3rd, we met with Deputy Chief Barry to discuss our proposed phasing, what was included in the letter on April 6th. And it's our understanding that they are, that it's acceptable to them, because it provides a surface. So if I may just explain the phasing,
Well, I'm,
in terms of the
go ahead.
roadways. and the-
I open up the can of worms, go ahead.
That's okay.
No, I'm happy, it's a good question, I'm happy to discuss it. So, our proposal is that upon the final certificate of occupancy for Building 1, this building here, we would have the roadway, or the driveway, it's a private driveway in this development, paved up to Binder from East Street all the way in to our proposed sewer pump station,
Yep.
because we need to do that. And then over here into the garage for Building 1. We would also, that would be paved to Binder, and then what we would also be doing is extending the road through to Kendall
Okay.
as gravel. So the fire, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I met with Deputy Chief Barry. As long as the surface was maintainable and could support their apparatus, he was okay with it. So we specifically talked about the gravel road out to Kendall, and he was okay with that. And then subsequent to that, when we get to the point of final certificate of occupancy for Building 2, we would then pave Binder out to Kendall Street, and then Building 3 and 4 would follow. But we'd be paved through from East Street to Kendall Street at that point.
Okay, since you're gonna do a phased project, but this is, which is fine, is as long as when you go to get your CO, you always have to check the site plan to make sure it agrees with what we did. So what I'm saying there is, you should have a plan that shows what phase 1 will look like you'd note Binder. And if the trees are going in, or the grass is going in one, you note that. If it isn't, you should have a plan that shows phase 1, phase 2, so when your building inspector comes in, and you didn't put the trees up, you know, right near the second building, well, we're digging it up now, well, you didn't designate, you don't want any, you want it all phased out, so that there's no mistakes that anybody can make when they go to sign off on it. So you just want a very clear, I guess, plan. Does,
It's fine. We can provide that.
Sure, absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean you can't, you know, if you have phase 1, to me, if it was, I'd do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, but there's nothing that says if you go like a bat out of hell, phase 1 and phase 2 are all done at the same time. Just as long as he says, okay, oh, all right, that's part of phase 3, I'm only doing phase 2 now. Or I'm getting the bushes in phase 3, but I'm signing off on phase 2 because we're the location, that's all. Just so there's no issues. The other thing is, probably you want it for your, what do you call it, clients. I think they'd wanna know, right? I know if I was buying it, I wanna know when things are happening.
Fair enough. Okay. All right, very good.
I'm sorry, I keep getting,
That's
and then
okay.
go back to condo docs. You're gonna have to have a condo association, correct?
Yes.
In your explanation, will Pulte be the only member until they're all built out?
We'll be the declarant and trustee until we're all built out, and then there'll be a turnover event.
Because, yeah, I'm concerned about that, because if you guys, and I've experienced myself, the guy slowly weans his way out, but he's still got a piece, who are we gonna go out, complain to? I mean, if something we have to go, we can't go to, you know, Joe, the stockbroker, and says, you gotta fix this over here, we need, so you're gonna be in it 100% to the end?
Yes,
So phase 4 and all signed off?
yes.
Okay, that's fine. That explains.
Yeah, and hopefully there'll be an approval, a permit, special permit issued to Pulte Homes in New England, will be the permittee. And, you know, we will be obligated and required to comply with the plans and the approvals and the conditions that are going to be put on the project.
And my
that's what
suggestion
we'll do.
as part of the phasing plan is when you go see the selectmen, let them, you guys decide when each thing happens. I know one of the things is written in here by the planners, you know, would it be right for you guys to do it all at once? Maybe you're gonna do it all at once, but if you're not, you're gonna have to have something done. So if like Easton High,
Oh, for the off-site improvements, in that letter that, Matt submitted to the board for your consideration, when we met with Maggie, we kind of went over our proposal, but what we would like to propose to the board as conditions of approval is that the intersection at our main entrance, so East Street and our site driveway, that the work would be done prior to the occupancy permit of building 1, but it would be bonded prior to the building permit of building 1.
That's right.
Correct?
Correct.
yeah, but
So that would be that. And then what we asked the board for was that to do School Street and High Plain, it's a little bit more involved. It involves engineering, it
Yep.
involves surveying, it involves design, like more detailed, elaborate design plans than the conceptual plans before you. So what we asked is that we would bond both of those, we would bond and design both of
Yes.
those intersections prior to the occupancy permit of building 1, which would give us, you know, about 10 months or so. So they would be bonded, and then we would commit to completing the School Street intersection improvements prior to the occupancy permit of building 3, and we would complete the High Plain intersection improvements prior to the occupancy permit of building 4.
okay.
That's.
You've thought about it, but once again, I remind you, we can have a love in here, but if on Tuesday nights, they have to be, the selectmen weigh in, because they're the off-site improvement people.
We'll be happy to go meet with them.
Yeah, so if you come back, you'd have the approvals, what they want, and then the phasing, and it gets incorporated, because we don't have a say on the phasing, because it's off-site improvements. They could tell you, we want it done before you even start.
So, God forbid, they only get to building 2 and then sales aren't going the way they thought. They're not gonna do the improvements on the intersections?
That was the intent of putting the bond up. So we would have the designs done and they would be bonded, so that if that did happen, which we don't expect it to happen, that the town would have the designs done and it would have the bond to complete those improvements.
Yeah, but wouldn't you do it yourself?
Oh, we plan fully to do the
No,
work
it's,
ourselves.
I understand what Mark's saying, it's
Right.
a good, valid point is, say you don't sell 3, and you got a bond on it, you certainly don't want the town doing it, because it's gonna be with the Davis-Bacon and all that, it's gonna cost you
Oh,
a
yeah, we
fortune.
don't want the town doing, we.
But you'll give us a bond, what I'm saying is, the bond's good, but the only way you'd have to default.
Right, that's absolutely correct. You know, we are committing to do the work. It's our obligation. We will provide a bond to the town to guarantee that and as a performance security. But it's our expectation to complete the project the way proposed and to be successful and to complete the
Yeah,
offset
no.
improvements that we committed to.
Yeah, okay. They ran out of stuff, yeah, I ran out of stuff, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I think we touched on pretty much everything here when you read the letters into the record. But just to kind of recap on stormwater, so Mr. Chesia performed a peer review on behalf of the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission.
He is here tonight.
And he's here tonight, yeah. And so he provided a initial comment letter on April 19th, and we responded to that with a written response to the comments, as well as an updated stormwater management report with updated calculations and some updated plan sheets on June 7th. Mr. Chesia reviewed our responses and issued a follow-up letter on June 25th. And in that letter, acknowledged that the majority of the original comments had been addressed to his satisfaction. However, there were a handful of comments remaining. And so we sat down and met with Mr. Chesia and Landis and Maggie following receipt of that second peer review letter, just to discuss the comments, make sure we understood them correctly, and then talk about potential solutions for how to address the remaining handful of comments. So then we had that meeting. That was just an offline meeting. But then last week we met with Conservation Commission, and Mr. Chesia had submitted his, or presented his findings at that meeting, and we discussed our proposed solutions to addressing the remaining comments. There were a couple of items that we wanted to discuss in a little more detail with the Conservation Commission and get their input on some of the items, and we did that. So when we left the Conservation Commission meeting, we had direction on the few items that were kind of up in the air still. So Conservation ultimately closed the meeting and voted to issue an order of conditions, subject to us submitting an updated set of plans that address the remaining comments. So I'm happy to go through those comments. I don't know if that's necessary or not. I can tell you they're fairly easily addressed on the plans. There's no comments that fundamentally change the plans at all. It's really just technical details of the stormwater modeling and stormwater design. And so following the Conservation Commission meeting, we did meet actually with Maggie on Monday, because Maggie is not at the Conservation Commission meeting, so we wanted to just discuss with Maggie what the resolution was with the commission, to confirm that that she was on board with it as well. And I don't want to speak for you, Maggie, but I believe that you concurred with everything that was
With this last list.
with the last
Yes.
list, and that we'll address it on the final plans of the Conservation Commission. And there's nothing fundamentally that changes the
And on the site plans that come back to this,
The project.
which are the, should be the
Correct.
same sheets.
Yes. So our request and our intention would be, if the board would be agreeable to this, that when we update the plans, the final plans for the Conservation Commission, we do the same for the planning board. So in other words, both boards are still working off one set of plans, referencing, if the project is approved, referencing that set of plans in the approvals. There's no confusion that way, it's the same set of plans. So we would request that, if you're open to it, that this board do something similar along those lines, just condition any decision on receiving a final updated set of plans addressing those comments.
Yeah, we do. Typically, what I do is, when you get to the end, is if you close with Concom now, right?
Correct.
A lot of times people aren't, and I says, we always condition, because if they change something, we
Sure.
can't have one plan here and there. And they, I wanna close it. Well, you close it and they change it, you start again. And that conservation usually meets the week before, so you can't wait 7 days, so we always do it. We're the last ones, because they don't care what your road look, well, unless it goes to wetlands, but we're the last ones, so I always tell the applicants, just wait till you get your final, and they're the final board. If you had the same thing with the zoning board, but they're not involved in it, if they were, say the same thing, wait for them. And usually we're at that point on most of them, that we have no more comments, we're just waiting for the final.
Okay.
That's, yeah, what you do is good.
All right, so, and then the other topics that were scheduled for tonight are water and sewer. And again, as you had read, you read a memo from the Commissioner of Sewer and Water, that we submitted the water and sewer capacity study to this board, but also to the Water and Sewer Commission. They had that study peer reviewed by two separate peer reviewers, one that looked at the water aspect of it, and then a different, and so that was Wright Pierce, and then a different consultant, Weston and Sampson, looked at the sewer aspect of it. So It was reviewed by two different peer reviewers, and in terms of the water, Wright Pierce agreed that the water system can handle the proposed water demand. Weston Sampson agreed that the sewer system is amply sized to handle the proposed flow. So with that information, we went before the commission, the Sewer and Water Commission, on June 25th and presented the findings, and we got their approval, which you have before you tonight. So they've approved of our proposed connections to the municipal water and municipal sewer systems. And so I had kind of a summary at the end here just to wrap it up, but you know, as we discussed, we have Conservation Commission approval, we have sewer and water approval. We heard tonight that we need to go before the selectmen to talk about the off-site improvements and hopefully get their buy-in on that. The stormwater, the water and sewer have all been, and traffic has all been extensively peer reviewed. And at this point, we feel that we've answered or addressed all the comments that we received. And I'm happy to answer any other questions that this board may have. And I believe we know what we need to do from here, which is go to the selectmen, put together a phasing plan, and come back before you.
Yeah, I just went through everything to make sure, even comments from everybody, and I think everything's been covered. I just want to make sure they get on the record for everybody. So, you're all set, so I'll go Maggie, since you have anything?
Nope, the only question I'd have is, does the board see a need to hear from your peer reviewer directly? He has adequately summarized, I believe, what's in the last letter from the Concom, but I didn't know if you wanted to hear from John Chesia directly.
So, what do you think? You wanna talk?
I think.
Yeah, come on up. Come on. Yeah, smile.
I think everybody's done my job tonight already from the sounds of it. There were a couple issues as discussed. I think that the Conservation Commission addressed those for the stormwater. The rest of it, there is really no disagreement. There's some details they need to add to the plans and that type of thing, but that's pretty much it. So I think we're in pretty good shape for this one. But if you have any questions on my letter or anything like that, that's...
You're all set?
I'm fine.
Okay. Kate, do you have any question you want to ask on the,
I have just a few questions, nothing earth-shattering.
on the stormwater while he's up there, or?
I don't think for him, no.
Okay. I don't have any for you. Mark?
I'm good.
Sarah?
I can only ask questions about stormwater, sewer, and water.
Well, while he's up here. After you go, yeah, we're gonna, after that, but I mean, while he's at the microphone.
Just had a question on the initial submission, when you submitted the fiscal impact statement, and you talked about impacts to town resources. There was no mention of sewer and water, and I was just wondering, there's kind of a catch-all at the end. I'm just wondering if any consultant or has there been a
The fiscal study was peer reviewed by RKG Associates, and that was, so we had presented the fiscal study, and then there was a peer review and a response from the town's fiscal study peer reviewer, and that was all resolved in the earlier hearing.
Well, I think if I remember right, the peer review was selected kind of without our input and just done before we really had a chance to talk about it. So I just have that outstanding question about, has somebody looked at the fiscal impact of this project with respect to sewer and water specifically?
Yeah, so I believe the fiscal impact of sewer and water is incorporated into the studies, but seeing we'll be back at the next meeting, I can take the comment down, and I can definitely make sure that we address it and we respond back to you at the next meeting.
Okay.
I do know that the biggest sewer maintenance cost is the on-site sewer pump station that's required, and that will be privately owned and maintained by the condominium association, so there'll be no physical impact to the town associated with that.
Okay.
For frankly, the sewer and water, all of the infrastructure on the condominium property will be maintained by the condominium, and there should be no physical impacts to the town of either of those services, but we can certainly get back to you on that.
Okay. Maggie, do you have any comments? Does it seem reasonable,
Yeah,
what they're
it does,
saying?
it does.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you're funny.
Okay?
Thank you.
You all set?
Yep.
That was easy.
That's one of the easiest ones I've done in a while.
Well, I'll find something, don't worry. I don't have, okay, I'm sorry. We're done the phasing. Now, general questions from Matt here on what he's presented to date. Yeah, okay, I'll start with Katie now.
So we had heard concerns in the past from Hartshorn Place about where the stormwater was going and how will it flow, and how they had water concerns. And I was wondering how you've addressed that. Have you directly addressed it? How's it gonna flow away from them? Can you show us that?
Sure. We have addressed that to answer the initial question. We have studied the runoff leaving this site at 3 distinct study points, and our stormwater report, which you have, and the modeling in that report studies runoff rate, the rate of runoff, and the volume of runoff at those 3 study points. One of those study points is that point right here. So water from part of the site runs off. So generally the site flows from east to west based on the topography, but when you really dissect it and look at the finer grading and topography of the land, there's one area where water focuses in the southwest corner of the site. There's one in the western middle area of the site here, and then one at the northwest corner of the site. That's where the 3 areas where water goes from this site. And so in the report, we've addressed the rate of runoff and volume of runoff at those 3 points, and we have mitigated both the rate and the volume. So in the proposed condition, both the rate and the volume, which is more stringent than DEP, only requires you to mitigate rate. So rate and volume in this case, because we did hear those concerns early on in the project and took a very close look at each of those areas. The rate and the volume will not be greater in the proposed than existing at each of those locations. So that has been addressed.
Have all the underground storage tanks already been removed, or do you still have to do that?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Okay,
I
we'll
know
follow up on that.
So I do know that there are environmental conditions at the site that are heavily regulated by DEP, and the owner of the site, the owner of Walpole Woodworkers, is actively working to, under DEP regulations, to clean up the property before it's conveyed to us. And they're on like the last stage of their achieving permanent solution. They're very close. I think all of the tanks have been removed
So
from the
when you
site,
get
but
it-
they will be.
When you get it, it'll be,
It'll
for
have
lack of a better
clean
word,
blessing.
clean. Yes.
It'll be
Okay. I'm assuming the project's gonna be sprinklered. I don't mean interior, I mean irrigation.
Yes.
Yes.
So with the water ban, we have a pretty strict water ban in Walpole. Do you have plans to do anything with the runoff, to trap the rain, do anything like that to reuse it? And the other thing, and this is more of a look into rather than a question per se, is because of the, I mean, I'm sure you're not gonna use a well and for irrigation, and I would say, based on just dealing with a 1 yard rather than a big project like this, you might wanna look into less grass and more drought resistant items, because I think it'll be an issue for you. I think it's a big issue throughout the town.
Okay.
I got some good of that drought resistant around the Edison at the corner Diamond and Stone. Stuff never turns brown.
It's
Play
carpet.
football on it.
Yes.
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay.
Mark?
I'm pretty good. I just, one question that doesn't have a lot of impact, just curiosity. No recreation on site at all, walking trails? You do have a lot of land out and back there that, you know, is
It's pretty
just.
wet.
Yeah, it is wet, but is there any plan for any kind of recreation on site?
No, I think the plan for the community is to use the safe pedestrian, sidewalk network that has been provided throughout the community for people that wanna walk. But, as far as off of the sidewalk, there's no trails.
No, no, obviously no pool or anything like that, but is there, so there's no community space or
Oh, actually,
recreation
I
area?
take that back. There are 2 sitting areas that have
Yeah.
been designed into the landscaping of the project.
So this area here is a gazebo area, so there's a little spur off the sidewalk here. Gazebo, gathering area, gardens around it.
Okay.
And then back in this area here, you know, because it's not central, we wanted to have another one toward the other end. It's not a gazebo, we didn't want to do the same thing, but there's a stone, brick, I believe, sitting garden, so some benches, and gardens and whatnot, kind of a circular shape for gathering as well.
Our vision is more passive recreation, so it's an age-restricted community, over 55. We believe people like to walk, enjoy the fresh air, and we've provided a few areas on the site where they can gather in their community gathering areas. As far as a clubhouse or a pool, you know, we've considered that. We have a lot of these active adult communities. We don't think there's enough units, density here that would support a clubhouse or a pool. Just as opposed to an apartment where the homeowners pay a rent and you get all the services. These are, again, it's a condominium, it's home ownership, and what we don't want to do is burden the homeowners who move in here with higher condo fees to pay for a clubhouse or a pool that, you know, maybe 10% of them maybe use. So our proposal is that if they do want a pool or if they do want some type of those recreational amenities, that they would find them in Walpole and join local clubs and local pool areas.
Okay, I'm good.
That's one of my questions, about walking path, recreational amenities. And I have a question about pet policy. Are you like, it's deep in the woods, but are you allowing pets? And if so, like, where are they supposed to walk?
Yes, so we do allow pets. There are pet regulations in the condominium documents.
Uh-huh.
And we have a rule that they're not supposed to defecate or urinate within 30 feet of the building. That's a rule that we have, but homeowners walk them.
Can you
in
teach
their-
my dog that, please?
Pets are always one of the early on issues of living in a community like this, because actually quite a few homeowners will have pets
Yeah.
and the other half won't, and you always get some initial pet concerns and pet complaints. But there are a lot of grassed areas and there are a lot of walkways where you can walk your pet in this community. We do have the benefit of a large green area up here along East Street that is currently where all their gazebos and play swings. So that's going to remain a big grassed area. And there are other grass areas, you know, throughout the community that people have an opportunity to walk their pet. And that's the way it will be handled.
Okay. I mean, I think 55 is very young, right? And
Absolutely.
people are wanting to go out and enjoy, and I think a project of this size really requires some kind of walking path. You know, it's in the bylaw that, you know, that we're gonna provide, you know, safe and comfortable and, you know, active environment. And I don't see that here, and I would really like to see walking. I mean, if you're saying it's wet, then that's a problem also. There should at least be some path, you know, relatively close to this big development where the residents can, you know, enjoy walking, not on Route 27.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. I think,
It's a valid comment. I mean, people do love to walk, and our intention is that they would utilize the sidewalk network that's been provided throughout the community. You know, the other idea that
Mark,
we can look at certain areas, but we don't typically like to encourage people walking like behind people's homes, you know, for safety and security reasons, if we can avoid it. I don't know.
just as a point of clarification, you've said it twice now, sidewalks provided throughout the community. I just want to clarify, Mark,
they're in the
is-
parking lot. I mean, they're next to the parking lot.
Yes,
That's
but,
what you mean.
okay.
Yeah.
He's not saying the community of Walpole,
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah.
in this particular
Yeah.
community. But yes, no, it's,
That's
I'm
not a very nice walk, if
I'm
you
not-
ask me.
Yes, I hear your comment and I understand, but I just wanted to clarify that he's talking about within this community.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I just think it really should be there. You should have a walking path for the residents to enjoy. And I would like to see other, you know, amenities like a clubhouse or something that they could, you know, rent or enjoy or make use of. That one, I guess, is more up to you, but I would really like the walking path.
Yeah, they have the sitting areas. We can get our canes and
No, they're
struggle on out there. You
they're
know,
not in
another
canes
year
at
I'll be able to
55.
buy one of these, you know?
They're walking
I'm
and
ready
doing
just to
yoga
sit.
and.
I think there's some opportunities on the site plan where we might be able to incorporate some off-pavement walking paths. I think we can get pretty creative with that, so.
How
Yeah,
close,
I think it would be more attractive to potential residents that there's somewhere safe to walk and enjoy the green and.
yeah, where your driveway comes out in Kendall, how close do you line up with the cemetery?
It's directly across from the cemetery.
So if you put a crosswalk there, paint it,
I can walk through the cemetery?
people do.
Not all people.
Explains a lot, yeah. That explains an awful lot.
They do at family reunions.
But I'm just saying, it, well,
Okay. Yeah, that's important. And I think I've asked this before, and forgive me, I forget the answer. I asked about like speed bumps within the project. Are you having any internal like speed bumps or anything to, no?
We are not proposing any speed bumps initially. I will tell you that, some of the residents will want them operationally as we get going here, but then half of the residents will not want them as
Right.
we get going there. But speed bumps and speeding is something that, you know, does come up during the course of, the community. And usually, you know, we have installed speed bumps in the past when the residents, want them.
Okay.
It's
And you
more
said
of an
at the
operational
T,
kind of
you were
meeting.
gonna have stop signs,
Stop sign is
like
proposed.
between, right-
For this movement here,
Uh-huh.
approaching this internal intersection, you can see the stop line right
Uh-huh.
there.
Uh-huh.
And there's a stop sign on the plan too.
okay,
So this would stop, but this would be through.
with no stop sign,
No stop sign on that, on the vertical
yeah,
road here, correct.
okay. Okay. Then the only other question, do I have any other? Oh, have you, I didn't see a plan which shows your lighting plan and how the lighting may impact neighbors.
One of the sheets in the plan set is a photometric plan.
Yeah, but it doesn't show like, you know, you get plans, it shows the exact number of lumens as you go out and how it's.
Right,
you-
this,
You verify that
because
it's
of the-
gonna dissipate to zero before you get to the neighbors.
right, okay, so the plan that we submitted, because of the scale of the plan, rather than, I know we do this on projects where we're maybe at a 20 scale, we have the individual numbers, the foot candle values.
Okay,
In lieu of that, because of the scale of the plan, and you can't really read the numbers of that scale, we showed a 0.1 foot candle contour, if you will, where the 0.1 foot candle is, so just about at zero. And it's well within the site, so
okay.
our
And we have
intention-
that plan? You've
It's in the
submitted
plan
it
set.
to us?
Yes.
Okay.
So our intention is to provide enough light for the residents to be able to come in and see what they're doing, but really more of a wayfinding level of light, not to light this whole development extremely bright.
Is there any decorative landscape lighting, uplighting, anything like that?
Yes,
There,
it's noted by the sign.
the only uplighting, decorative uplighting would be at the entrance wall.
At the entrance,
along
okay.
East Street, and it would be pointing at the.
But no landscape lighting up into any trees or street trees or anything like that?
No.
Nothing like that?
And all the proposed streetlights, they're decorative streetlights. There's a cut sheet in the plans of what they look like, but the lights up in the top of the housing, it's full cutoff, downward lighting, LED, which in itself has LED lights have a very sharp cutoff.
Sure.
So it's, and because of the buffer we kind of have around most of the site, the 0.1 foot candle doesn't, and you can look for yourself, it doesn't come anywhere close to the property line.
I mean, don't get me
Okay,
wrong, I
I'll
love
just-
decorative lighting and landscape lighting. I was hoping you were gonna say, yeah, this place is gonna look awesome from the street, you know, but regardless, it is what it is. Sarah, I don't wanna,
Yeah, that's it, those are my
just,
comments.
the
questions, thank
only
you.
last question I had was, is there going to be any association maintained, security cameras on any of the buildings? Parking lot, driveways, or, you know, behind the buildings, that type of thing? Is that something Pulte does, or,
It's not something that we're proposing initially. It's something that we've done in the past when the need arises. It's not something that we do proactively, but if there's a need for cameras, then we would install them.
and who would maintain, would it be like the association that would maintain them, own the footage, whatever, or would,
Yeah, so the property will be condominiumized at the first closing, and then we will hire a independent property manager to manage the property.
Sure.
To hire all the contractors, to bill all the homeowners, and run the operations, the day-to-day operations of the condominium. So that property manager would install the cameras and manage the cameras and.
okay, so
Under
that's
the
something
direction
more
of
that the
under
management
the
company would
direction of the
handle?
trustees, of
Sure,
course. The
okay.
trustees are the ones that make the decisions.
All right.
You all
I'm
set?
good, yeah.
All right, I asked most of my questions before, but I will ask, not to you, Matt. I saw something today right across from the Natick Mall when I was out of the job, and just questioned, and Crenshaw was building it. I assume they're doing it for their parent company, National Development, I don't know. Are you familiar with Crenshaw?
I'm aware of them.
But National Development, well, anyway,
I'm aware of National.
they're building housing, and it said 62-year-old. Is that something new? I know 62 isn't new, but I'm saying, is that something new in the government now, or another? I saw,
qualified?
yeah, age qualified 62-year-old, and I'm like, what is that? That's different. You don't know anything about it?
Well, the HOPA, the federal law that this falls under, and most of the ages
Yep.
communities fall under is 55.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but
There is a 62 threshold. A lot of times that has to deal with like more of assisted living type of communities, as opposed.
so you're saying that I need assisted living?
No, Mr. Chairman.
He doesn't want you to walk, though.
No, just curious, when I saw that, it's like, it was
So-
different. It is,
We honestly, in Andover, we have a community, and it's just the minimum age restriction is 62 and over.
okay.
But it was a local zoning that the town of Andover enacted in their overlay, and it's 62 plus.
No, I was just curious, I saw that, and it's like, wow, that's different.
But that's very, very rare. It's not typical.
All right, so we're too old then, okay. I don't have anything else. Anyone from the audience have any questions, comments?
Can I ask one more thing? If the audience doesn't have.
You folks all set? Okay.
And I think I'm jumping the gun, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. Do you have a plan for when this is being built, because it's frame, and there have been other issues in other towns with fires? Do you have a plan for fire prevention while it's in the construction phase?
Well, there'll be a hydrant, near, when you're building, we'll have the benefit of a hydrant out on East Street, when we're building building one. But honestly, you know, if there's a fire during construction, it's problematic. It is, because, you know, all of the buildings will be,
Goes right
will have
out.
fire suppression. Unfortunately, one of the last things that's completed on the building and turned on is the fire suppression system, which would help and which would put out the fire, so, you know, that's certainly, a risk that, you know, developers and builders take when they're building during the building stage. I mean, I don't.
You all set? Okay. I don't, so we're kind of at that point. Now I look back at your schedule. Miscellaneous outstanding items, do you have any right now that you need? Or
No, I mean, what I believe our outstanding items are is what we talked about tonight, and it's meeting with the selectmen and
Okay.
working on a phasing plan and.
That's where I'm going with,
And
because
that-
month, so you need to get an appointment. I don't think you'll get there for that, so unless you see a need, anything else you have come up, I would say we'd move it to, what, September? What do you guys, I'm gonna put it to you, when can you guys get everything together, I guess?
Get everything together, like,
Well, you have to go see the selectmen, you gotta do your phasing plan, you gotta
Yes.
bring it all back. The biggest hurdle will be the selectmen getting on, getting the hearing, That's your biggest hurdle, so August 16th, I don't see that happening, you never have it, especially in the summer.
so let me ask a question. One of the other big items that we have to do is we've made a lot of commitments and we've received a lot of comments and we've responded to a lot. And so, you know, the plans that are before you are the original submittal plans. And we've had all of these comments and we've had all of these meetings. We owe you at some point an updated set of plans that addresses all of the comments.
So you
and
wanna-
How we said
Okay. You wanna do that next time? You get it together in a month,
is that,
within 2 weeks? Yeah, that'd be,
would the board like to see that maybe before you close the hearing, or how does your
Definitely.
typical
oh, no,
process
that's,
work?
that's a definite, but I'm just saying is, you're gonna have to have it at the final close, but you also, we have to have on our plans, all the phasing and all the stuff from the selectmen. That's in your, court right now, right?
Yeah.
What do you guys,
Well, if it's possible, would you mind putting us on the August meeting, and then if we're not ready for the August meeting, then we would ask for a continuance to the September meeting, but could we work on getting the phasing plan and work on meeting with the selectmen?
Yeah,
prior
just-
to that? I don't,
yeah, just as long as you know, we gotta get it 2 weeks in advance, so by like August 1st, so. yeah. That's why I keep, everybody goes,
I see
"Ugh."
what you're saying.
Not the day before.
I won't have that, so
I don't
I'll
think so.
take your suggestion, and I think September will be fine.
Okay.
Well, what we'd like to do is we'll wrap up the phasing, hopefully meet with the selectmen and get their approval, and hopefully have the set of plans into the board as well, and into the commission, maybe all prior to that
Yes.
September meeting.
Okay.
I would contact Cindy in the selectman's office as fast as possible to try to get on their agenda, because it's not necessarily automatic. They get filled up pretty fast.
Question.
Is
He-
it long?
He wanted to know, no, I'll summarize. He wanted to know if, you plan on having a backup electric source, a generator for the elevators. So his thought process was, if I'm following it, that
Too much TV.
if the power should go out and there's someone who can't handle stairs and there's only one elevator in the building, what's the exit strategy? So,
Chief
is there a
Barry.
generator? Is there,
So there is no generator for the buildings,
Right.
but the, buildings will be designed to building code, and building code requires those elevators to go down when the power is out.
when the power is out?
So if
How
you,
does
What I-
that work
what-
if there's no generator?
it doesn't just cuts,
Just
they
goes
program it
slowly.
and it just goes boom.
Okay.
So let's go. Big spring on the
Quick
ball.
ride, right?
So if you see the lights flickering, you gotta run like crazy to get down that elevator before it goes boom.
It only goes once, it goes down and that's it?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, you call the fire department.
That's a building code item.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds like Joe wants to live there.
Did you ever ride Tower of Terror
No, I
down in
didn't.
Florida?
I
It's the
refused.
same idea.
Mr. Chairman, what date is the September hearing? Forgive me if you've already
6th,
said that. September 6th? Okay.
unless you guys are still vacationing.
6th and 20th.
Yes.
And also, what about Highbridge, is that going with them?
No, we'll get an extension on that, so I have a motion, I have a second for the extension?
Second?
Is there a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so extended through 30th, and we'll give you, at what time? Then we'll do the hybrid. 7:30
7:31.
and 7:31 on September 6th, okay?
7:15?
We have Bristol.
Oh, okay.
And while you're still sitting there, we didn't take a vote yet for Highbridge, so.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, we
I
did?
just need we have an extension through 9:30, I just don't know where you wanna put them, you didn't tell me where are they gonna follow?
Oh, put them on,
us?
yeah, put them on
Okay.
7:30. That's on, that's under other business, but we'll put them on for September 6th too. Okay? And that's all we got. All right?
All right, thank you. Good night.
Between framing fires and falling elevators, you guys are unbelievable.
You gotta ask.
Sorry there wasn't any more. Usually we have a little, stuff going before you guys, getting riled up. We had one that kinda canceled, so that kinda, you disappointed, huh?
Before or after that applicant
You wanna go on the 20th? Put you right after.
I don't see that lighting plan, so if you could just like let me know like where it is somewhere. Oh, maybe it's separate, not in the set? Okay.
Yours or yours?
Something new or
No,
something
I think
very
it was
old?
I think it's very old.
Okay.
That's why I think it should be on there.
Be careful, Jack,
This
take
one?
you for a walk in the graveyard. It's a one-way trip.
Kinda like going up on the metro. I don't get out much, so.
Yeah, that is it.
And where is it, where's the line showing?
Around each light fixture,
Those circles.
it shows the point.
Oh,
of the pin.
that's it? Oh, I thought you were gonna show around the whole project.
Well, those are the, so the
Okay.
lighting of the project, I know we
So,
could,
okay.
continue, but there'll be, wall lights at each of the doors in the garages, and then there'll be, these parking lot lights, which are, what are they, focal poles, so they're 15 feet tall, LED decorative,
I see, okay.
and, they provide, as Matt said, they provide wayfinding, and there's enough for safety and security, but it's not lit up like, commercial development, it's more residential in nature.
Yeah. So if you park in between those lights, you gotta bring your flashlight?
No, it works,
Yeah? All right,
it works.
okay. All right, I'll take a look at that, thank you.
Yeah.
Enough people like that.
Hey, off the record, does Pulte ever do like cover the parking lots and then use that space for solar to run your decorative and parking lot lighting? Is that something that you guys have ever done?
Not in this area.
Not in this geography?
I can't speak to what we do, because we're nationwide.
Sure.
But, you know, New England out of the Westboro office, and we haven't done any of those ideas, but would they do that out west? I don't.
I'm starting to see a lot of that in like schools around here, like high school parking lots there. They don't need to cover the parking spaces, but they do simply to use that area for solar, and then they pay for their exterior lighting with it.
Yeah, I've only seen that, actually, I've seen that twice, once on Route 9 and her kind of,
Yeah.
Chevrolet deal, that they have that same situation, and then there's a Dunkin' Donuts in Milford, I forget what road that is, but they have their whole parking lot and they have solar on the covers, but we haven't.
Yeah, it's becoming very, I mean, just conversationally, I've seen it, I'm starting to see it pop up a lot of places, even the Natick Mall now is, covering the top level of their parking garage simply to put solar, yeah.
It's green.
But you're right, in New England, it's not like that. you get the same kind of,
I got some other little stuff.
I think you're seeing it more around here. You don't get the same impact that you get in more environments
Right.
throughout the year.
right, absolutely.
It works here because of the funding.
Which I think
That's where the
ends
business
next,
works.
doesn't the tax incentive end next year
Thank you.
for that? Thank you,
Thank you.
Jack.
My next item, through all, we had 3 articles. Going, because it's not that info, so we have a request to extend the moratorium. So, all we have is extend the moratorium downtown, so make a motion,
Is that
the CBD.
an article that he's
Yeah.
proposing
Yeah,
Town meeting.
at town, to extend the moratorium?
for another year, yep.
Should we consider what Mr. Flowers said earlier about
Absolutely.
that
like to-
taking us out of the running for that funding?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that a little bit.
I
'Cause
don't think we should pass that.
I think it's important because, well, I understand what he said, and I hadn't heard that before tonight. But I feel the moratorium's important because we're flooding a small area with a huge number of new units for the area size. And think we need to consider and see firsthand what the true impact will be, because we have no idea. We really have no idea. It could be a wonderful impact, and it could, generate revenue from them supporting businesses, but it could also impact us negatively and tax our services as far as police, fire, and, possibly even schools. I heard what Andrew said, and I considered that, and I think that despite what he said, there's no guarantee of receiving any of that money. And you don't know how many other towns, and we've gone for other grants. I've been in, on some of the groups I'm on, we've looked into some grants, and you are one of many, many, many people looking for that money. So to take the risk and a risk of an unknown of being able to receive anything, we don't know how we stack up on those other towns we're going to be going for the grants against. But to take the risk of letting that moratorium go and having more development before we know the development effect of what's coming, I think that's more of a risk. I think the moratorium's important for that reason. I don't know if I'm saying that clearly, but I just think there's so much unknown with what's coming. And it could be good, could be bad, but we don't have any idea. And I think before we take the risk of taxing it more, we need to stop, breathe, and see how it affects us. And that's why, if I weigh the two, I think the moratorium comes up higher for me. And I'm in support of what they're doing. I'm not against that in any way. It's just when it comes to this issue, I think the moratorium rises higher for me.
So let's say we do a moratorium. What's the mechanism by which the town is going to evaluate whether our systems are sufficiently?
Well, I think that the town council reworded that, so it would be worded properly in her response. And I think that it'll be pretty blatant. I mean, it's a situation of the fire department response, the police department response, if the downtown is positively growing and we see, businesses wanting to come and be here because there's more consumer revenue. I don't think it's going to be hard to uncover whether it's a plus or a minus. I think it's going to be pretty evident. I think parking, I think, just everything, the total effect on the town. Foot traffic, parking.
Right, I understand, but under what mechanism is it going to be reviewed?
How did she word it? Do you have that? I don't have it in front of
Be
me.
reviewed?
No, well, I wanna see how she reworded the,
She said to study,
it's in the packet.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading here.
says to study whether,
So maybe we study it by asking for reports from the departments. Maybe we ask for a police department report, we ask for a fire department report, we ask the town administrator to report. He certainly hears a lot on the parking. We can even ask the businesses for their input. I think that,
but should the moratorium end and we get a project before us, you know, that would be part of
I'm not
the
opposed,
response
yeah,
that,
I'm not
you know,
opposed to.
fire or police or whatever would say, like, you know, in consideration of the recent project next door, this is our opinion, and we'd take that into consideration in reviewing, you know, whatever applicant is before us.
I don't know if they, like, we don't ask the town administrator to report to us on, like, the parking effect. We don't know the business effect.
Right, I mean,
Those
that's
aren't
what I'm saying,
reports
like,
we
it's
get.
kind of an empty moratorium.
But that's what I'm saying, so maybe we should add that to the article. Ask for, with reports from departments to come, and ask the departments to report. I just think that, I mean, the number of people that if it's successful, which I think they will be, if they're successful, the number of people that will all of a sudden be added to the community, let alone that small area. CBD is very small. It's
Right.
not a big area.
For sure, yeah.
It's definitely going to have some sort of an impact. And I just feel like it's important. It's important that we don't want to encourage others to think I'm not opposed to adding to it. So if someone else comes forward with a project, long-term, I'm not opposed, as long as we can respond to it accurately because we know what we're dealing with. And I just don't think we know what we're dealing with.
How
I
much
think-
available area realistically is out there that could have an effect
There's
on the
some
CBD?
parcels, look at Gilmore's. I mean, there are some parcels out
They
there.
could tear something down. and-
Well,
Yeah.
Gil- Gilmore's and those two families that John Carroll owns, or those two single families leading up to it on the CVS side. So it's or two family, and then Gilmore's. The moratorium is only going to delay them. They know what they want to do there. That's all coming down, and something else
But
is
a
going on.
delay's good, because you don't want them jumping on the bandwagon and doing, a quick, because everything's positive right now.
But the state of Massachusetts and, the different agencies, housing, economic development, they're trying to discourage this use of moratorium. So,
The housing issue is a national issue, it's not just a Massachusetts issue. It's the entire country. And I understand what Massachusetts is trying to do. So if you've ever gone for a grant, you're up against, we're pretty small potatoes compared to a lot of what you're up against. We are, and in order to receive the grant money, you have to meet all the criteria and shine. And I just don't know if that's
well,
worth
on that,
risking.
so in order to qualify for this housing choice initiative, we need to, at minimum, increase 300 units over the last 5 years. So I looked at the numbers from 2014 to 2017, and then if we were to add later 2018, and what we're at now is 162 units. So if we can net in 2018, 138 new units, and we have to do a few other things, like,
What are the other criteria, do we know?
I don't have it on the top of my head, but we have to do other smart choices. I don't know how they word it. Different. I can't remember. There's a couple of requirements, but some of them that we're already doing. can look at, there's an email that I put together when this first came out about a year ago, and I looked at each kind of requirement and whether or not I thought Walpole would qualify. And it seemed like we meet several of the requirements already without doing really anything, like, like open budgets and, no special permits for certain projects, and that we have an area of Walpole that allows for denser housing, which would be like the general residence, a couple different criteria that's needed. So for that reason, I'm not in favor of it, but just in general, that I think it can be handled in another way. Like I said, as projects come in, let's say some projects, major projects going before us for site plan, we're going to ask fire, we're going to ask, the police, we're going to get reports from sewer and water, and if there are significant impacts from the other project, then we can take that into consideration. The selectmen can ask for off-site improvements. There can be ways of dealing with it instead of just blanket, no, moratorium.
Well, what you have to do on any of that, it's in the book, you gotta go by the book. You can't change the book and you can't hold a gun to their head. That's the thing with the zoning, so. And that's one of the, we can't just say we don't like it, we got too much traffic. Yeah, we didn't create the traffic, that's what it's like in everything. So that's one of the risks you run, is by not having a moratorium, and you gotta go by what's in the book. My own opinion is, forget the state, 10 million bucks, so that's, that's a pay raise for half the legislature for 6 months. I mean, that's enough in money. And one of the things I've seen in the past, being on the building committee, is all these things will typically go to the communities that aren't as affluent. So when we went for money for, the council on aging had money, Walpole's too high up, goes to the, which makes sense, I guess, you give it to the neediest first, and, how much will be there when it's time for us, I don't know. But is that already passed, that whole thing, and funded, or just?
Yeah, there are towns that applied this year. It closed in April,
Did anybody get it yet?
I didn't look into it because Walpole wasn't in the running, so I didn't care as much. But it opens again, I believe, January of 2019, and runs through April. And then they announce when do they announce? I don't remember. We could, I don't know, if it's out, we should definitely look at it and what are the criteria, and are there towns similar to Walpole that, makes us think that we got a shot at it.
Well, might as well just put it to a vote now, I mean.
How many units are we talking total between the two developments, without taking Pulte into consideration?
195 and 190, thereabouts, 150, 190, so you're 250, 340?
350.
Yeah, that's too many for me. It's not comfort, it's just not comfort level. That's a lot of people. It changes the whole dynamic of the community. I totally support the housing partnership, but I can't not support the moratorium. That's just me.
All right, well, I'll put it to a vote, see what happens, make a motion to support or sponsor the article for the town meeting for the continued moratorium. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, so 2 to 2, so it sits nowhere.
Should we just, is there time to get our 5th vote?
Is it time for what?
Is there time to get the 5th vote before the
No.
warrant closes? No? So it goes 2-2? Okay.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't even go, you don't even put it on. Yeah, nothing, this doesn't even leave here.
Oh,
This was like the vote to put it on, and then you could vote that night whether you're in favor or not. This was just a vote to put on the warrant. So it
Okay.
never leaves home.
okay.
Okay. Warren Lane, final bond release residence
Yeah,
hearing.
what about the other articles?
They're dead. You read her, it's,
Oh, they're
in my opinion, this article confuses the requirements. All right, and then the farm stand, it's already in the, it's like belt suspenders, duct tape, thumbtacks, and all that. So,
Okay.
okay, we have Warren Lane, Northbridge Farms is all done, so what we can do is we'll make a vote to have a residence hearing on the 16th of August. Over here. All right, make a motion to have the residence hearing on this, I don't know, Mark, you been here for residence hearing? I know Sarah and Kate haven't.
I don't know.
All right, the purpose of residence hearing is, a long time ago, it used to get banged at the town meeting. Someone would say, well, they didn't do this and this and this. So what we do now is, it's not required, but we notify every resident of the subdivision. It's their time to bitch at us if something's not done right. And it gives them one last shot, so that if you're in front of town meeting, that you don't get blindsided by, we've already released the bond at that time too, is we had the hearing, no one complained. So this is why we do give the residents an opportunity to do that. So,
That's good.
so did it,
Yeah.
so did we voted that, Kate?
No, I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that will be a residence hearing on the 16th? Yeah. What do we got, just,
Also,
what's on 8/16 that
Pemberton, Rustic, and North Street.
we should put it before them, right?
Yeah, I was gonna do like 7:05.
Yeah, something like that. Okay.
And,
Atlantic Court's ready too?
yep, same thing.
That should be easy, there's only 2 houses on it, right?
Might be 4.
Is it 4?
Yeah, there's more than 2.
He lives in one of them, right?
There's 4. 1, 2, 3.
I'm not sure.
No, he does
That's-
not.
Oh, I thought he was taking the big one at the end.
Well,
Okay.
he's not listed.
Okay, all the bond items for Atlantic Court, so make a motion to have residence hearing on August 16th.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, August 16th.
7.
I've got a question that you asked me, or that I asked you, but you told me to ask the whole board. For the peer review for Renmar, I finally, yesterday, after a month of asking, got their documents in. The question is, do you want me to have, and this is just for traffic, because they haven't filed their NOI yet, so till they file their NOI, we can't do the drainage part. But for their traffic peer review, do you want them to come to 1 meeting or 2? Is that sufficiently big, you want 2? I'm thinking a letter review and then a revision to their letter, but at least 1 meeting, but do you want 2? I have to tell you, that'll probably increase the cost about $1,000, because these guys seem to charge anywhere from $750 to $1,200 to come to a second meeting, but if you want it, we should figure it in at the beginning.
So I'm sitting here making the goose, and these guys are making $1,000?
Oh, at least, yeah.
Wow,
It's a lot. It's a lot.
I'm going down there.
Yeah.
Motion to endorse 27 Main Street.
My opinion is, I want it in front of everybody, so if, we don't wanna get caught short, is, I can't, if he does it once, comes to 1 meeting, which would be after the first review, and when he does his final,
Yeah.
right? It's, what do you guys think? You need more than 1, or do you want 2?
This is Renmar, this is the AQV,
Yeah.
and you anticipate 2 meetings?
Well, I'm asking you if you, because the thing is you'd have them, basically, they'd do their review, they'd write their letter, and then the first guy they'd go back and forth, maybe you would ask for enough to have them go back and forth once. 1 meeting probably would be enough, the only thing is if you want to do 2, if you anticipate having, that this traffic's gonna be such an issue for this site, and you want this guy to come back, you need to get your money up front, because God only knows if you say, well, we want this guy to come back, they may not wanna fund it, so you wanna do it all at once.
The problem with that one is the plans they gave us
That's a
don't
weird-
even have
yeah.
the correct roads.
There was
So
some
how are
weirdness
we
with those
even
initial
gonna
plans.
Wanna go with 2?
Evaluate it.
Oh,
Yeah,
2.
go with 2.
Cause I could realistically see they need, things could change. I can't, I don't wanna speak to
It's-
merits, but
That's what I
Yeah,
wanted to.
if they do it one way, it's probably pretty straightforward, then they're talking
If
about all these
anything
other
changes,
roads.
They
Exactly.
kept talking about these different things that
It's
Yeah.
not there,
They
and
lost me
it's
halfway through
halfway
that, so I
there,
don't-
and-
so that's how I'll put out the request to the different guys.
Another
On
native,
the cover,
where?
not on the cover sheet, so they don't. No way.
Oh, American's done this before, we've had Westwood with him, or with his dad, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing.
I took a set of Rob Truax's plans to the registry of deeds last back to school acceptances, and the wonderful lady at the front counter was taken because they forgot to put 2 north arrows on the plans. Their surveyor signed off on them, but there were no, so it's like, mistakes happen.
It's there.
But is it on enough sheets?
No,
It's on
So
that one.
It's on the detail sheet.
But do you sign every
Leftover from-
sheet, or do you sign?
Well, Maggie, we shouldn't be signing the detail
No, I
sheet,
know,
but I would
that's-
think we'd
that's-
sign the real sheet.
Yeah,
Yeah?
I mean, that's been your point before.
We can't sign that.
There's nothing there.
We can't.
You have no idea.
You just don't want
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Take it back, Danny boy.
it. He's rubbing off on you too much. Oh, one mistake,
There's
that's it, we're outta
rules,
here.
and if you
Kill.
follow the rules, we'll be happy to sign your Mylars.
Well,
You
then
have
we
not
can't
followed
sign
the
any of them
rules.
No,
No
there's nothing
signing.
to sign. We can sign
No
the two
signing.
stupid ones that you don't have to sign, which are typical details that we, you know.
So send them back.
Yeah.
That's what happened with the registry plans. I mean, I could read the plan, I knew which way north was, but the lady said, this, and this, that follow the registry of deeds
I'm
rules.
surprised at that, because he's usually right on the money.
Yeah.
American.
Nah, I've had stuff in the past.
Really?
Like I said, it said
It
Westwood
comes
one night.
across as,
Yeah, but I've
like
had it
right on
with
the
his
money.
father one night, and I'm going, we're Westwood? You can't sign it? No, you can go to Westwood, they might sign it. But there's not, yeah. You'd figure that'd be the first thing they'd spot, and that's the other thing I don't like them doing is maybe someday we'll have places that always in the same place.
I think the registry of deeds has that.
Do they?
And that we
Usually
only
in
have
a
to
certain
sign
place.
place.
we had a stamp that had the lines already on it, it wouldn't matter if they
We're
put
not
it
so
there.
lucky.
Jack, before you adjourn, I have one question.
If we have the
Pass
stamp
that
that
around. I don't
puts all the
wanna put
the contours and everything too.
The
Do
vote on
that.
the
Recycle.
moratorium
Yep,
was 2-2
yep.
not to sponsor
No.
it.
224. The article's made in the affirmative.
Right, but it was to sponsor the article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna be.
It doesn't leave here, nope.
It's not a
Okay.
vote.
And I think that's it. See you on the 16th.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a good month.
Have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.